The Age of the Mecha, Fists That Shatter Stars. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 401 Quad-Core. Sensing the movement, Tan Yaozu and He Guangzi both looked at Li Yi. In 2 hours, all was absorbed. This endurance is indeed strong. Tan Yaozu said enviously. Both are the strongest level of flesh, but Li Yi can endure for so long, which shows how important a subtle level of fighting skills is. Although each level of fighting skills and divine control is stronger than the other, the subtle level is very magical. Even if it is promoted to the divine realm, the pure subtle level can also play many wonderful uses. In this regard, the spiritual level corresponding to divine control is much inferior in terms of the breadth of application. Li Yi slowly opened his eyes, and the divine light in his eyes flashed and disappeared. Tan Yaozu's eyes lit up. It seems that your soul strength has increased again. Just now, I was almost pierced by the divine light in your eyes and it hurt, Li Yi, almost. This time the benefit is indeed not small. He didn't expect that although there was no divine initiation this time, due to the great contribution to the battle, the amount of liquefied divinity given was also quite large. After 2 hours of absorption, he generated 20 in one fell swoop, just enough for the number of Thunder God sequence dual cores. Although the growth was slightly inferior to the last initiation, the difference was not too much. The current total number of divine genes has reached 121, equivalent to the amount of 4.4 divine cores. From the number of divine genes alone, it has surpassed the number of condensed in the regular 9th stage of the heavenly rank. As for the total amount of divinity, because it has not yet undergone the 3-element integration, the characteristic increase of the 9 stages of the heavenly rank, and the strongest transformation increase, in general, it is currently equivalent to the total amount of divinity of the 8th stage of the heavenly rank. As for the physical body, it has naturally increased slightly. But starting from the strongest physical body, it is already a very strong physical body base. At this time, the increase ratio brought by 20 divine genes is much lower. Later, when he has enough 9 cores and 12 cores, he can consider the 3-element integration and directly enter the heavenly rank. Unexpectedly, it was originally thought that it would take at least 10 years to accumulate enough, but now it has only taken less than a year to reach 1/3 of the goal. By then, once the 3 elements merge into one and are promoted to the heavenly position, there should be another super increase in strength. Li Yi knew that this was also his chance to overtake. After all, once the 3 elements merge into one, the transformation of the physical body into the heavenly position begins, and the speed of generating divine genes will further plummet. In this case, it is better to work harder on the divine genes and condense more. In this way, even if the increase brought by a single divine gene is not as good as that of the strongest, his condensation speed is faster and the total number accumulated is also greater. When he reaches the heavenly position or even the strongest in the later stage, the increase in strength will surely be greater. Fuck, tell me a number, don't hide it. In 2 hours, you can increase by about 14. Tan Yaozu saw that Li Yi did not continue to speak, and he was immediately anxious. He Guangzi glanced at Tan Yaozu. This guy? Is he trying to humiliate himself again? Li Yi smiled and said, it's only 17, not more. Considering that 20 was too outrageous, he did not say all of them, but just referred to the number generated by He Guangzi and doubled it directly. Tan Yaozu, oh, I'm so envious. It seems that the God Mecha project is not bad. At least it can allow geniuses like you to not rush to be promoted to the heavenly rank, and accumulate divine genes before the 3 elements merge into one. In this way, there will be fewer bottlenecks in subsequent growth. Li Yi, brother, I suggest that since you have such a talent and your strength is so outstanding, far exceeding other participants in the God Mecha project, then you might as well stay before the heavenly rank for a while and try to condense as many divine nuclei as possible. After I was promoted to the strongest, I clearly felt that ordinary divine radiation was of no use to me. If I want to gain the growth of divine genes, the effect of divine penetration like this will probably get worse and worse in the future. Hearing this, He Guangzi also agreed. Old Tan is right, Li Yi, your overall strength is amazing now. You don't have to rush to be promoted to the heavenly rank. If possible, try to generate 6 cores, or even 9 cores, and then consider promotion. When the 3 elements merge, the integration of divinity, divine genes, and soul will further stabilize the genes of the physical body. In this step, the human gene chain is fixed, which has the advantage of not being prone to genetic diseases and not being prone to physical collapse. But for you who are improving at a high speed, it is equivalent to getting off the highway and taking a rural road, which is not worth a loss. Therefore, since you have the potential to continue to generate, then continue to persist until you can no longer persist, and then consider the integration of the three elements to maximize your potential in one go. Understand? Liu nodded. He naturally had the same opinion, but he didn't expect that Guangxi and Tan Yaozu were so pessimistic about the growth rate after being promoted to the strongest. Brother after you were promoted to the strongest, did you also feel that the generation rate of divine genes slowed down? Guangxi said, before the strongest, if I accepted the same amount of divine penetration, I could generate at least 10, but now I can only reach 8, and it is estimated that it will be even less in the future. Liu nodded slightly. He calculated in his mind. According to Guangxi's statement, it didn't seem to be very efficient for him to generate 20. After all, the total amount of his liquefied divinity was at least 4 times that of Guangxi. Divine penetration will have a phenomenon of diminishing marginal utility. After conversion, his efficiency should be only slightly higher than Guangxi, basically the same. Is it because his divinity is not guided properly? No, it is unlikely. His vision is at the microscopic level, and his accuracy is obviously higher. In other words, is it because he has undergone the strongest transformation in advance that he is immune to the radiation of divinity? Liu thought to himself, it is really possible. After all, he has already undergone the strongest transformation of Xiangang method, Neptune transformation, and second stage thunder forging method in advance, and with the addition of more divine gene amplification. His physical body has long been more than one level stronger than Guangxi and Tan Yaozu. From this perspective, the strongest transformation will also have a certain impact on the growth efficiency of the divine gene. However, when I was in the strongest transformation before, I was able to generate new divine genes. This shows that during the process of physical transformation, the stability of genes can be disrupted and the speed can be accelerated, and after the transformation period, the growth rate will slow down. Then, if I can use various bodybuilding methods to achieve multiple physical transformations, doesn't it mean that divine genes can also be generated quickly? This idea is not bad. If it works, it will kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I can try it later. As for now, I just need to keep from performing the 3-element integration. Although the generation efficiency will be weaker than before, as long as the soul strength can keep up, it shouldn't be too different. Thinking of this, Liu already had a lot of clear ideas for becoming stronger. At this time, as the 3 people completed the divine infiltration, the maze of the 5th level was also refreshed in front of the 3 people. Chapter 402 Reunion. There was no light in the maze, it was dark. The location was a small cave 3 or 4 meters high, with a straight road leading to the front, which seemed to be getting narrower and narrower. However, Liu knew that once he entered the front, there would be a lot of forks, some large and some small. At the same time, the wall pattern would refresh every minute, making it difficult to identify where the correct way out was. The layout here was very similar to the maze that Liu had encountered before on the Kunlun ship Wushan, but it was more difficult to pass. If Liu hadn't obtained some information from the Supreme Poing's clone, he would not have been sure to get through. The 5th level, Liu quickly introduced the precautions, and then said, after passing this level, you can obtain the zone control authority, confirm the location of the portal, and leave the Wudao Divine Mountain. 2 brothers, follow me closely. I know how to get through this level. Pay attention. In this level, we must run very fast. Don't fall behind. Guangxi's heart moved. Did you get this path from the clone of the Supreme Poing? That's right. Is there a risk of changing it midway? It's hard to say. Let's go first and see. The 3 of them talked for a while and ran quickly. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. The gravity here has returned 200 times. The 3 of them ran at high speed, leaving after images, and ran without hesitation at each fork in the road. Liu was confident that he could pass this level. On the one hand, through the information from the clone of the Supreme Poing, he knew that there were 5 modes in this maze, which would be displayed randomly according to the different challengers. After he entered, he had already determined which mode the maze was. The next thing to solve was the problem of the maze pattern refreshing every minute. As long as the reference lines around the maze wall are refreshed, he will be completely lost if he cannot get out of the maze within 1 minute. Li Yu's method is, first, fast, and second, to judge his position through the subtle vibrations generated by each step he takes. In this way, even if the maze lines are refreshed, he can quickly determine which fork he has walked through. Of course, this is not enough, because the special structure of the ground makes it difficult for ordinary subtle forces to be transmitted in place. Therefore, every step he takes must reach a precision of 50 nanometers, and the power of blessing needs to be very large. In this way, his consumption will also increase significantly in a short period of time. If it weren't for the fact that his total amount of divinity has increased a lot compared to before, reaching the level equivalent to the 8th stage of the heavenly position. This wave, he probably can only dig his own grave. Fortunately, with sufficient intelligence, combined with his strong judgment, everything has become less difficult. In a blink of an eye, the first minute passed, and the surrounding lines were instantly refreshed. Swipe. 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 In just a blink of an eye, the lines, details, and positions of the rock wall, the ground, the ceiling, every crack, and every corner are changing. Li Yu narrowed his eyes slightly, and his feet burst out with full force, bombarding the ground. Bang! 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 The powerful overclocked micro-vibration was transmitted to the ground and echoed everywhere. In Li Yu's mind, a trajectory map of the surrounding environment of the maze was instantly constructed. Sure enough, all the traces, lines, and positions are illusions, only the passage itself is real, it's feasible. Li Yu's eyes lit up slightly, and he shouted, "Two brothers, can you still speed up?" "Yes, you go ahead, I'll catch up, then follow closely." As soon as the voice fell, Li Yu activated the 3.2 version of the burst skill and the 2.0 brain super lifting technique, and his state was instantly sublimated. In an instant, surging white gas overflowed from his mouth and nose, and a slightly slanted and slightly arced white gas was drawn behind him, passing by the ears of He Guangzi and Tan Yaozu. Swish! His speed increased sharply, and his body turned into a residual image, rushing forward at once. Tan Yaozu gritted his teeth and directly activated the accumulated anti-entropy and coordination divine will to bless himself. His stride distance doubled at once, and he flashed forward like a ghost. He Guangzi first activated the Thunder God sequence divine will to offset the external suppression of the divinity. Then he activated the wind and fire characteristics of his auxiliary cultivation, forming an explosive thrust behind him and kept rushing forward. Boom! 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 The two were shocked to find that they couldn't get close to Li Yi immediately, even if they tried their best. Fortunately, they were guided by the white gas gushing from Li Yi's mouth and nose, so they didn't lose him. They knew that this white gas was so condensed and so long that it must be the result of Li Yi's deliberate blessing. Otherwise, with his speed, this white gas would have been blown away by the strong wind long ago. Good guy, this is being carried by Li Yi the whole way, but, old Tan, can't be so embarrassed, Tan Yaozu shouted, and the intensity of the burst skill was raised to a higher level, and the speed was raised to a higher level. He Guangzi had no choice but to squeeze the divinity and increase the speed. In a blink of an eye, the two of them approached each other at a rapid speed, one in front of the other. Finally, before the third minute was about to arrive, the light in front of the three of them suddenly became bright and dazzling. When Tan Yaozu stopped, he found that in front of the cave exit, there was actually a very bright small star, standing in front of him. Of course, this small star is called a small star, but it is also equivalent to the size of an enlarged version of the main ship of the Deep Space Fleet. That is, it is at least 1.3 times the size of the Kunlun ship. It is equivalent to 4.9 times the size of the Yaoqi ship. Standing at the exit of the cave, the three people were like little ants. Even though the distance between the two was at least thousands of kilometers, the extremely pressing heat was still transmitted with the airwaves. Li Yu looked down and found that his extremely tough skin was actually starting to burn black. You know, with his current physical strength, he can basically bathe in magma. But it turned out to be burnt black, which means that the surface temperature of the small star in front is at least 3,000 or 4,000 degrees. Wow, isn't that the old road? Tan Yaozu said in shock. Li Yu followed Tan Yaozu's gaze and found several small ice coffins wandering on the surface of the small star. Through the ice coffin, you can see the outline and clothing style of the frozen Lu Yunshen. In addition, the other ice coffins are not the familiar Zhaohui, Qin Longchuan and others. Although they are all human, they are obviously strangers. However, Li Yu observed for a moment, activated the one Li eye, and simply looked more carefully. But he found that one person's face was 70% similar to his own sister Li Lulu. The difference is that Li Lulu is younger and more lively. The woman in the ice coffin in front, although she also has a beautiful face, there is a subtle coldness and melancholy between her eyebrows. At the same time, her clothing style is also obviously the ancient palace dress of the earth. White feather clothes, gauze ribbons on the shoulders, slender figure, red dots on the forehead, and a sense of nobility as a whole. This guy, can't he be the original Lu? Li Yu muttered in his heart. Chapter 403, Uncovering the Coffin. Strange, I looked around, but I didn't see anyone except Lao Lu. Tan Yaozu frowned. He Guangzi nodded slightly and said, it seems that Lao Lu fell into some trap and came here. For example, a forbidden area, Li Yu said. According to the information we got, the maze is full of forbidden areas. It seems that Brother Lu accidentally triggered a similar trap. The two of them were not aimless. Judging from the sense of oppression they felt when walking in the maze, there is obviously a forbidden area in the maze. We have no way here. How to go back? What should we do next? Save Lao Lu first. Lu is right opposite. We need to bypass the small star in front and fly to the opposite side. As for Lao Lu, let me do it. It's just right that my coordination of divine will can easily resolve the scorching heat of the small star. After a quick exchange, several people finally decided that Tan Yaozu would try to rescue Lu Yunshen. The two of them temporarily supported in the back and observed the changes. Li Yu's focus was on the ice coffin that was suspected to be where Lu was. He was hesitating whether to get this person down. There are multiple versions of the person Lu. The first version that Li Yu knew was recorded in the Guardman's notebook. It recorded that sometime after he planted the selfish wisdom factor on Earth, he saw a floating corpse outside the Xianxu ruins. This floating corpse was the original Lu. Li Yu did not know how the Guardman dealt with the floating corpse Lu in the end. Later, the Guardman created a clone of Lu. After cultivating it for a period of time, he exiled this Lu because he realized that it might pose a threat to himself in the future. The place of exile is most likely the Earth. Then there is the granddaughter of the decryption expert Lao Zhang, also named Lu. Li Yu once used Lao Zhang's previous description of Professor Tang to profile the appearance of this Lu. And this appearance is 70% to 80% similar to Li Lulu, a high school girl Li Yu met on Earth. Moreover, Li Lulu does have the so-called fate sequence talent of the Guardman. But Li Yu checked and found that Li Lulu's relatives were completely different from Lao Zhang's family tree. In other words, Lao Zhang's granddaughter Lu and his current sister Li Lulu, even if they were related, were not the same person. In summary, Li Yu had learned about 4 different versions of Lu in his past experiences. The ice coffin Lu he encountered at present is likely to be one of the other 3 versions mentioned above, and has a lot of research value. No matter which version it is, it may help him figure out some things. Well, the opportunity is rare. In addition to this ice coffin Lu, let's also take back some of the people on the other ice coffins. I have information about the remaining paths, and the precision is also sufficient, so it's not too difficult. After making up his mind, Li Yu immediately continued to use his 1,000 miles eyes to search around the ice coffin to see if he could get 1 or 2 more useful people. 20 minutes later, Tan Yaozu slowly flew back to the cave entrance with Lu Yunsheng's ice coffin. When he landed, the ground made a loud rumbling sound. Is this ice coffin very heavy? He Guangzi felt the unusual sound of the ice coffin falling to the ground, and his eyes changed slightly. Tan Yaozu nodded. Yes, it is very heavy, at least equivalent to 8 tons of weight. Which makes me slow down, He Guangzi asked. When you say 8 tons, do you mean 8 tons after 100 times of gravity, or is it 8 tons before 100 times of gravity? Judging from the action of Tan Yaozu just landing, although the force of his landing was heavy, it was not as heavy as 800 tons. The actual feeling is about the same as carrying something of 300 to 400 tons under standard gravity, which is equivalent to 2 blue whales. Tan Yaozu said, that small star is quite safe. I thought there would be some kind of protection device, but I didn't expect that nothing happened in this round trip. I think the other ice coffins can also be taken down. These may be humans who strayed into the Mishon maze in the past. I just don't know which era they are from. Judging from their clothing, they may be people from thousands of years ago. Li Yu nodded. I also think we can get these people down, and maybe we can get something else. Tan Yaozu smiled and said, let me do it. You can see if you can wake up Lao Lu. As he said that, Tan Yaozu jumped out and flew to the small star in front again. Outside the small star, 7 or 8 ice coffins slowly floated and drifted, and they were still as stable as before under the stellar wind that blew from time to time. Tanyaozu flew over very quickly. With the gravity of the small star, he could reach the location of the ice coffin in 5 or 6 minutes, but it would take 2 or 3 times as long to come back. Li Yi and He Guangzi didn't look at Tanyaozu much, and both turned their attention to the ice coffin in front of them. This ice coffin is about 3.6 meters long, less than 1 meter wide, and about 0.5 meters high. It is made of ice crystals, covered with a translucent boat-shaped coffin lid, and printed with a linear pattern of the other shore. It is not an ice coffin, but an ice crystal coffin. The overall structure is hard and solid, without any gap between the lid and the body of the coffin, and it exudes a chill as low as -70 or 80 degrees. He Guangzi reached out to open the coffin, exerted force with his fingers, and his shoulder muscles swelled. After several attempts, it still did not move. Good guy, it's so stable, no wonder it can float on the surface of that small star for so long without any damage. He Guangzi was surprised. How about a help? Li Yu said. You don't have to intervene. No matter how stable it is, it's just an ice coffin. I will melt it with burning electricity. I don't believe it won't melt through. He Guangzi patted his chest and said. He squatted down, exerted force with his palm, and the Thunder God's divine will was stimulated to offset the divine suppression. He tried to melt the ice coffin with the burning characteristics, and then activated the electromagnetic field to strengthen his own strength. Zzz. Various tiny electric arcs flashed. These tiny arcs were extremely hot, and when they touched the ice coffin, they suddenly burst into amazing flames, extremely gorgeous, like rainbow light. However, He Guangzi continued to increase his strength, but still failed to open the ice coffin. A few minutes later, old He was sweating profusely. Brother He, can you do it? How about I try, can I? He Guangzi's eyebrows jumped, and he wanted to say something, but he finally let go, stood up, coughed lightly and said, since you want to try, then this opportunity is given to you. Alice, it was almost opened. Li Yu laughed, but he didn't expect that old He would insist in such a weird place. But he could understand that it was really embarrassing to be slapped in the face just after making a bold statement. Li Yu squatted down, stretched out his hand to touch the ice coffin, and the 50-nanometer subtle tremor quickly transmitted back and forth. Interesting, this ice coffin may be a special combination of characteristics, it seems to hide some special information. Chapter 404. Li Yu's operation was naturally to sense the details inside the ice coffin with the power of micro-vibration. It seems that some words were left inside these ice coffins with the power of micrometer level. Li Yu judged that these words were the words of the first era. Soon, he deciphered it and found that it was actually a strange scripture. This scripture was very mysterious. He read it silently for a moment and felt a little dizzy and horrified. Could it be the mysterious and unique skill of the first era? It's just missing a part. Li Yu's heart moved, and he took a quick look and memorized it in his mind. This can not only avoid dizziness, but also speculate afterwards, activate the memory of the parallel world, and decipher it directly. After completing these, he charged his palm and hit the ice coffin. Bang! The ice coffin shook, and there was a click, and a sound came from the ice coffin. There was no movement. There was no crack. He Guangzi breathed a sigh of relief. Li Yu frowned, and was also a little surprised. Normally, this palm of his would contain a subtle force that penetrated into the subtle connection between materials. Normally, it would be enough to break the armor of a C-class divine Mecha. Since it doesn't work, let's try again. He added more strength and punched again. Bang! A thin crack 0.1 millimeters wide appeared where he was hit. He Guangzi was shocked. It was a very strong blow. Since this kid understood the power of divine will, his physical attack power has obviously reached a higher level. Even if he didn't use the power of divine will, it would be very powerful with pure subtle skills. He estimated that the strength of this ice coffin had basically reached the strength of the second and third stages of A-class armor. Even after he was promoted to the strongest, he had to rely on the bottom of the box heavenly combination skills to create such a crack. Boom, boom, boom. Punch after punch. In addition to the subtle force, Li Yu also superimposed the divine will of the God of Fire sequence. The amazing flame divine will that seemed to burn everything was like an invisible flame, melting through everything. Although Li Yu had not yet accumulated enough divine genes of the God of Fire sequence to form one core, There were only 18 of them. But because he was controlling the divine will with fighting skills, he did not need too much divinity to inspire such a fierce divine will. As the origin of the divine will, it was his body that was comparable to the strongest at the moment. With just one trigger, a sufficient amount of divine will could be unleashed. In an instant, the subtle power and the divine will of the God of Fire sequence worked together, and the ice coffin was finally punched with an obvious hole. Puff! The hole was opened, and the airflow inside and outside instantly met. The cold air and the scorching air collided, and in an instant, crackling sounds were heard, and scorching steam rose and surged. Wow, He Guangzi exclaimed, you can easily use the God of Fire sequence. From the looks of it, you can also use other gods, right? It turns out that mastering gods through fighting skills is the right way. Li Yi shook his head and said, that's not the case. The gods I am best at present are mainly the gods of Thunder sequence, followed by the gods of Hades sequence. As for the gods of Fire sequence, one is that the gods of Fire sequence and the gods of Thunder sequence are very similar. So they are easy to master. As for the others, it will take some time to use them proficiently. It doesn't matter. At least you have the qualifications to easily control other gods, which is much better than me who can only use the gods of Thunder sequence. That's a later story. Brother He, since you have already broken through the ice coffin, come and help us. Let's open up other parts as soon as possible, okay? As they spoke, the two of them acted quickly and attacked one after another. Soon, they broke the lid of the upper layer of the ice coffin and then opened it. As expected, Lu Yansheng appeared in front of them with his eyes closed. 3 hours later, Tanyaozu had already moved all 7 suspended ice coffins in, and Li Yi and He Guangzi had opened them all. The 3 of them knew it tacitly. Since touching one was the same, why not touch more? Since they were here, how could they leave empty-handed? Li Yi himself also obtained other mysterious scriptures from other ice coffins, and memorized them in his mind to ponder later. However, Lu Yansheng and the others have not yet shown any signs of waking up. After observing for a while, the few people unanimously concluded that Lu Yansheng should be in a state similar to amnesia. His soul should still be connected to his body, but he has been unable to come back to his senses. After all, no one among them is proficient in soul-related characteristics. Even with a blessing of microelectricity, life enhancement and other characteristics, Lu Yansheng still cannot be awakened. In other words, they can only carry Lu Yansheng for the time being. Ignore Lao Lu for now, and see who to take with you. Take one person each, and take 2 people away first. How about it? Tanyaozu suggested. Li Yu pointed at the only woman among the 7 people, the one named Ice Coffin Lu. This person must have a big secret. Let me take her away. Tanyaozu's eyes lit up. Good taste. I also think this woman is the most beautiful in the whole place, He Guangzi said speechlessly. Don't talk as if you are going to an entertainment venue to spend money. Be careful. You are a senior figure in the Federation after all. Li Yu knew that the 2 of them would rather believe that he was just attracted by Ice Coffin Lu's appearance. This is normal. Although everyone in the ice coffin looks like they have a history, it is hard to say who is special. Except for Lu Yansheng, who is obviously a modern person, the rest of the people in the ice coffin are basically humans of the same era. That is, this group of people may already know each other. So, in fact, it doesn't make much difference which person to take out. But Li Yi was too lazy to say too much. After all, the matter of Lu was too complicated and he couldn't explain it in detail. He Guangzi smiled and said, good things come in pairs. It seems that there is only one female Yan among our strongest men. She is too masculine and lacks yin, and her characteristics are also lacking in auxiliary people. In this case, I will take another beauty with me. Maybe she can develop into teammate. Old Tan, please take Lao Lu with you. The other woman among the 7 people also looks pretty good. She has a fair complexion, a plump figure, and a dignified appearance with a bit of gorgeousness. Judging from her appearance and temperament, she is about 35 years old, and has a more mature charm than the ice coffin Lu next door. Her clothing is the style of the palace beauties of 2,000 or 3,000 years ago. Tanyaozu looked down on Lao He. You value women over friendship. You are not Li Yi, who is only in his 20s. You are over 100 years old, and you are still so disrespectful to your age. I am really ashamed for you. He Guangzi shrugged and said, don't say that. Maybe this woman just looks young. If you cut her open, she may be older than you and me combined, and she is very dark, disgusting. It's really disgusting, Tanyaozu cursed. You always ruin my good mood." Although he cursed harshly, he did not forget to carry Lu Yunqing on his back. Immediately, the three of them carried one person each, jumped out of the cave, circled the small star in front, and flew to the cave in another direction. In theory, as long as they walked through another section of the maze, they should be able to complete the trial. However, this maze is called a trial, but with sufficient information and Li Yi's subtle means of identifying directions, it is easier than the previous two levels. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 405 Reward. More than 10 minutes later, the three of them carried one person on their shoulders and successfully bypassed a small star and came to the entrance of the maze, diagonally opposite. This process was not smooth. Several strong stellar winds were squeezed out on the middle, carrying a scorching heat, crossing a distance of thousands of meters, which greatly hindered the speed of several people. Fortunately, although the stellar wind was powerful, the initial speed was not high. The three people dodged it several times and managed to escape. After falling into the entrance of the maze, the bodies and souls of the three people sank, and they clearly felt the suppression of gravity and souls. They began to run. After walking for a while, He Guangzi asked, "How is it? Is there a record of the maze route on the opposite side in the intelligence?" "Yes, and at present, there is no mistake or omission," Li Yu said. "It seems that we are lucky, but it is better to be careful. Maybe they know that the intelligence has been leaked, and deliberately make a 9 true and 1 false thing for you," He Guangzi reminded. While talking, Li Yu said hello, and directly activated the 3.2 burst skill and brain super lifting technique, accelerating rapidly. Still the old rules, although he has information about the maze route, it is better to get out within 3 minutes. If the time exceeds this, the more the pattern changes, the more variables will increase exponentially. If one point is accidentally misjudged, it will be troublesome to return to the original route. Tan Yaozu and He Guangzi, naturally, did not hesitate, each automatically accelerated their means, and tried their best to follow up. Soon, the maze refreshed twice. When it was about to refresh for the third time, the three of them barely saw the exit flashing in front of them. After all, everyone added one person this time, and under the condition of 100 times gravity, it was also a burden. Everyone almost didn't catch up with the refresh. Fortunately, since they saw the exit, it didn't matter whether it was refreshed or not. Swish! 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 The three jumped out of the cave, their bodies suspended. In front of them, it was the meteor shower interface in the 4th level. A grand voice also rang out, "Congratulations, you have completed the 5-level trial. Due to the superior clearance speed and the successful bringing out of the forbidden creatures, the overall evaluation of this challenge is excellent. Reward, 1 initiation, optional reward, 1 chance to comprehend the divine will of the quasi-god level, optional reward, control of the Wuxian maze, can be miniaturized and carried. Please choose from the optional rewards." The three looked at each other. Although the opportunity to comprehend the divine will of the quasi-god level sounds good, it is obviously not as good as the Wuxian maze. After all, their original purpose is to gain control of the Wuxian maze and rescue Qin Longquan, Zhao He and others who are trapped here. "I just don't know if our Wuxian maze is the same thing as the Wuxian maze on the Kunlun ship," Tan Yaozu said, touching his chin. Li Yu said, "Even if it is different, it is almost the same. I have walked through the Wuxian maze of the Kunlun ship, which can also provide some rewards for enlightenment. If you can obtain the Wuxian golden light, maybe you can directly trigger the entrance to another Wudao divine mountain." He Guangzi's eyes lit up. In other words, if you choose the Wuxian maze, if the entrance is closed in a later stage, we can still enter the Wudao divine mountain directly by obtaining the Wuxian golden light. The reason why he said so is that Wudao divine mountain is basically triggered once, and the next time you want to trigger the entrance, you need to wait for an opportunity or find another entrance. This can be seen from the fact that Qin Longquan and others have already discovered the entrances to Saturn and Mars, but still want to enter the entrance of this Henshin prison. Moreover, the trial challenges and rewards brought by different entrances are also completely different. Most of the rewards this time are divine initiation and divine penetration, which are quite good things. Li Yu said, "It is highly likely, but it is not easy to obtain the Wuxian golden light in the Wuxian labyrinth. Tanyaozu said with a smile, "It's okay, there is a long way to go. Besides, we are not going through the regular channels this time. We haven't even passed the first level. Maybe we can go through that entrance again to get more benefits later." It has to be said that it is a tempting idea. If we can continue to get more benefits in Wudao Shenshin, the efficiency of evolution will definitely be much better than that of exploring the Earth ruins. After all, the divine initiation here is more common than that in the Earth ruins. In terms of level, Wudao Shenshin is probably better than the major ruins on Earth. This Wudao Shenshin is probably a very high-end existence in the first era. The main body of the Earth ruins basically started from the second era. Only some sub-areas have relics left over from the first era. For example, the Longhu sub-area of Taishan Base and the Jinai-Ao sub-area of Kunlun Base. The simulated battlefield of the third and fourth levels of their trial this time is also the place where the famous battle of Jinai-Ao Supreme in the first year took place. Unfortunately, the scene on other meteors they saw from the meteor shower was not clear. They could only see a powerful phantom fighting in it. I think that was the young Supreme Jin Yao. By the way, the first and second eras both had the title of Supreme Jin Yao. I don't know if it was the same person or if he inherited the title. At least, according to the records, the super castle that Li Yi and Zhang Shengfeng and others saw in the inner layer of the Star Division was jointly built by the Supreme Xingmang and the Supreme Jin Yao to avoid disasters. It was just that the castle was not completed at that time, and the disaster happened. The three of them quickly made a decision to understand the mountain maze. After getting the answers from the three people, the grand voice slowly said, "The reward item of the control of the mountain maze has been selected." As soon as the voice fell, light particles suddenly gathered in front of the three people, forming a seal-shaped object. Holding this, you can observe the Wushan labyrinth in your soul, activate the divine will, and control it. Continue to inject the power of divine will, and you can shrink the Wushan labyrinth and carry it with you. The seal floated in the air in front of Li Yi. He Guangzi said, "Li Yi, since you have been the one who led us through the previous levels, and Lao Tan and I played less than 20% of the role, I will give this thing to you." Tanyaozu also said, "That's right. And it sounds like this thing needs to consume a lot of divine will. Among the three of us, only you can use the power of your physical body to continuously generate divine will." Although Lao He has reached the realm of refining the soul, his refining speed is definitely not as fast as yours. As the saying goes, a sword fits a hero, and you are just right to get this treasure. He Guangzi continued, "Yes, this Wushan labyrinth is indeed an extraordinary treasure. It is used to seal, trap enemies, or train, and it has great mysteries. Maybe in the future it will be a pivotal divine treasure that can greatly affect the direction of our war. Lao Tan and I are relieved to give it to you." Li Yu nodded and did not refuse. "In that case, I will be disrespectful to refuse." "Yes, that's right. The most urgent thing now is to see if Lao Qin and Lao Zhao are in there." Chapter 406, Cold and Lonely. Li Yu reached out and grabbed the seal. Snap! At the moment of grabbing it, a large amount of information flow instantly appeared in his mind. The information flow rushed down like a waterfall. Li Yu tightened his scalp, maintained a state of 2.0 brain super lifting technique, and quickly absorbed the picture. Unexpectedly, the amount of information in the maze was almost the same as the instantaneous information volume at the 80 nanometer level. This is really terrifying. You know, the scale of the Wushan maze is based on people as the basic traffic unit. Compared with the instantaneous information volume at the same level of 80 nanometers, it is equivalent to the Wushan maze being able to monitor the complex actions of tens of millions of people at the same time. In addition to various refresh information, detailed patterns and other more detailed levels, it can be seen that to control the Wushan maze, it is not just a random person. Even the strongest person may have to have the processing efficiency of Li Yi. He was thinking about continuing to study the internal situation and looking for the traces of Qin Longquan and others. Suddenly, a loud voice said, "Please release the type of divine sequence that needs to be initiating as soon as possible. Do not delay receiving it, otherwise it will become invalid." The three looked at each other and knew that they could not delay, so they immediately activated their divinity. Although Li Yu wanted to continue looking, he could still distinguish the priorities at the moment. Since the maze was already in hand, Qin Longquan and the others should be safe for the time being. If they were not there and had already left, it would be impossible to take care of them. This time, the divinity that Li Yi activated was the immortal divinity. Although this immortal divinity has no active characteristics, The effect of its passive characteristics is amazing enough. One divine gene can bring a lot of vitality. This kind of vitality is different from the other characteristics of his life god sequence, but it can really prolong life and increase the endurance of the body. Therefore, with the initial completion of the two-core goal of the Thunder God sequence, the current focus is naturally the Immortal Divine Gene, which is a guaranteed SS-level divine gene. Tanyaozu still led the divinity this time, while He Guangzi changed from the Thunder God sequence to the Fire God sequence. Soon, a large amount of liquid divinity appeared above the three people's heads, sweeping like a whirlpool, gathering madly, and pouring into the heads of the three people. At the same time, Lin Jianlong drove the Xianzhao Mecha alone and appeared outside an extremely remote ancient ruins. The location of this ancient ruins is extremely remote, and the planet where it is located is not very impressive, which is equivalent to 1.5 moons. In this vast and endless deep space, it is like a grain of sand. Small and insignificant. There is a Stargate around, but it has been destroyed long ago. The remaining Stargate ruins lie across the outer circle of this planet, like a donut that has been bitten off in half. The planet is nameless and is numbered as the first star of Nanjing Stargate. Except for a few strong people who master the characteristics of cosmic light, space, and shuttle, or giant starships with jump capabilities, they can arrive in a relatively short time. Even if others want to arrive, it will take several years at the fastest. Therefore, before this, humans rarely send strong people to communicate with Yan. On the one hand, it is to reduce the risk of Yan being found by aliens, and on the other hand, it is also very difficult. Now that quantum communication cannot be connected, it is only Lin Jianlong who can find Yan in a short time. This nearly 500-meter-high Xianzhao Mecha quickly circled the first star of the Nanjing Stargate and then quickly fell down. The entire planet is very desolate. Except for the special ruins temporarily named the Time Ruins, there is nothing. Of course, the Time Ruins alone are enough to make all the strong people excited. Because the time sequence is very rare, once the divine nucleus produced in it can be mastered, the corresponding divine gene can be generated, and the lifespan and combat power will be greatly improved. Lin Jianlong has seen such information in the data. If you can collect any three of the four major time-related divine sequences of time, years, and cosmic light, there is a high probability of successfully avoiding disasters. And the cosmic light divinity he mastered is also one of them. Yan, this guy, has been studying here for so long, I wonder what he has gained. Thinking in his heart, the Xianzhao Mecha slowly flew to the entrance of the ruins. Lin Jianlong had also explored the periphery of the Time Ruins before, so he was familiar with the route. Moreover, Yan also left obvious traces of activities outside the ruins, so it was not difficult to find him 20 minutes later. The Xianzhao Mecha followed the traces, stepped out of the passage, and appeared in a chaotic void shrouded by the aurora. In front of the Xianzhao Mecha, a 468-meter pure black mecha was also suspended in the void. It was Yan's mecha, the Mingpo Mecha. The Mingpo Mecha had a slender body and long limbs. There were gorgeous linear patterns printed on the body, rising up along the diamond edges of the body until it reached its narrow jaw. In the center of each pattern, there was a simple picture of a human face expressing different emotions: greed, anger, ignorance, hatred, love, evil, desire. Infinite human faces, infinite subtleties. Seeing the Nether Soul Mecha, Lin Jianlong was not surprised that he had completed the task, but was only shocked. Because, for some reason, the body of Yan was floating in front of the Nether Soul Mecha, like a dead body that had already died. It was cold and silent. Through the detection system, it was immediately seen that the heartbeat of the body had already stopped. Damn, is it affected by the time characteristics here? Before he had time to get close to check. Suddenly, a sharp sword-like cut from the side. Tanyaozu and He Guangzi's initiation ended one after another. Panting, Tanyaozu smiled. Old He, you are not good this time. You didn't even beat me. You should set a bigger goal. Don't always compete with me. What can you gain by competing with me? You should compete with Li Yi, so that you will have enough motivation to practice. You are wrong. Compared with you, I at least gained happiness and confidence. Compared with Li Yi, I can only gain inferiority, and there is no motivation, Tanyaozu said with a smile. He Guangzi was speechless. It sounded like there was nothing wrong with it. After thinking for a while, he asked, how many divine genes did you generate during this initiation? Not many. One less than the last time. How about you? He Guangzi was even more speechless, because he had 2 less this time than last time. It seems that although he has ushered in a burst of improvement after being promoted to the strongest, the requirement for soul surplus is still increasing in such a short time to complete the hard work that used to take more than 10 or 20 years to complete. It can be clearly seen from the slowdown in the growth rate this time that after 2 initiations and 1 infiltration, the total amount increased by 1.5 cores in 2 days. Both of them have reached a bottleneck. If it weren't for the divine initiation, it is estimated that it would not be possible to increase so many divine genes at once this time. I just don't know how much Li Yi can increase this time. Chapter 407 Rescue. After 10 and he woke up, Li Yi slowly opened his eyes after a while. As he opened his eyes, an amazing aura was released all at once. The heavy air under 100 times gravity set off countless small whirlpools under this aura. Tanyaozu looked at Li Yi's appearance and knew that he had definitely made great progress again. However, considering the decline of him and He Guangzi, he was moved and asked, Li Yi, the amount you increased this time, compared with the last initiation, has it dropped, or is it the same, or has it increased? Li Yi shook his head regretfully. It didn't increase, the number was the same both times. Tanyaozu immediately envied. In this situation, if it doesn't fall, it will increase, which means that you still have a lot of potential for improvement. Unlike me and Laohui, it's basically the end, and it takes a while to accumulate new potential to generate new divine genes, He Guangzi said. Indeed, our gains in the past 2 days have been very fierce, so how many coins did you increase? Tanyaozu didn't want to ask so many questions, but he couldn't help it after all. Because he could see that the numbers Li Yi talked about in the previous 2 times might have been fooling them. In fact, the amount of divine genes that Li Yi gained from 1 initiation was definitely much more than the 22 he had said before. Li Yi smiled. This time, he did gain 1 more core, 27 divine genes. However, after this surge, even he almost felt a bottleneck. After all, after these trials, the soul surplus had been rapidly consumed by the surge of 2.4 core power. Before receiving the first initiation, his soul surplus was around 140. Now it has increased by a total of 74, which basically cut his amazing surplus in half. Basically, it has greatly realized his potential that can be consumed in the near future. Although this soul surplus is a dynamic value, it is definitely normal to be high and low. But Li Yi knows that as his physical body reaches the strongest level, if he wants to maintain the same high growth as before, this soul surplus must be kept above 100. No, it should be said that the higher the better. Fortunately, the growth brought to him by 27 divine genes is still good. At least in terms of the total amount of divinity, it is already comparable to the 9th stage of the heavenly rank, or even slightly better, and only slightly inferior to the total amount of divinity of the supreme rank. He estimated that even if he did not combine the 3 elements into one, and with the blessing of the 9th stage of the heavenly rank, he would probably have 1 more core, and the total amount of divinity would be equivalent to the conventional total amount of the supreme rank. Although on paper, it seems a bit outrageous that the 6 cores can only be on par with the supreme element core synthesized by 3 cores. But there is no way. These 6 cores are actually just virtual references, and they have not yet synthesized into divine element cores. Not to mention the supreme element core of the supreme rank, even the element core of the heavenly rank does not count, it is just an accumulation of numbers. However, he knows that with such a large number, if he can synthesize the element core at that time, the transformation it brings will definitely be earth-shattering. By the way, in terms of the physical body, there has also been a small increase. Although the amount of increase is nothing compared to the current huge base. Li Yi's slightly amused expression fell into Tanyaozu's eyes, and he paused in his heart and his scalp tightened. Subconsciously, Tanyaozu immediately said, "Forget it, anyway, your profit is definitely much higher than ours, so let's not humiliate ourselves. Let's get the situation in the maze sorted out first." "Not bad, old Tan, you are self-aware." He Guangzi was immediately happy. Tanyaozu could see that Li Yi was hiding something, so he could see it even better. As the successor to the position of the strategic commander-in-chief of the Xingyu Federation, he was naturally not in vain. Li Yi didn't think much about it, took out the authority seal, and injected divinity into it. Buzz, buzz, buzz. A lot of information was injected into his mind. This time he had the experience of the last time, and he was familiar with the process. He quickly classified a lot of information and sorted it out quickly. After a while, Li Yu's eyes moved slightly. Found it, it's Brother Zhao. In this huge maze, Zhao He seemed to be fighting with an opponent. The divinity outside his body roared, and the sky-high flames burned wantonly. The narrow passage was filled with flames and was very bright. It was the strong heat of the flame that made Li Yu notice Zhao He for the first time. Li Yu looked at Zhao He's opponent again. He saw that this opponent was a pure black-skinned armored man. The outer shell of his armor looked like a black prawn, nested layer by layer. It looked exactly like the unique appearance of the armored man of the Third Era. Qin Longquan was not here, and there was another armored man of the Third Era. Thinking of the situation that Lu Yansheng was almost invaded by the Third Era armored man, his genes were transformed, and he became an armored man, Li Yu inexplicably thought that Qin Longquan would not be transformed. No, it should be unlikely. Qin Longquan's strength is at least the top second in the human race. Even Lu Yansheng can resist for a long time, so he will not be hit and completely transformed. Moreover, judging from the battle scene, Zhao He is obviously suppressing his opponent at this moment. If he has the strength to transform Qin Longquan, he will not be suppressed by Zhao He. But, where did this armored man come from? Could it be one of the previous batch of soul bodies? Thinking of this, he tried to inject divine will into it, control the Wushan labyrinth, and directly suppress the opponent. Or open the portal and go in to help. After a little attempt, Li Yu found that the means of directly killing or suppressing the enemy in the Wushan labyrinth is its own circulation ability, which can be completed autonomously without relying on external forces. Therefore, it is also troublesome to stimulate divine will and use it to control the suppressing force. After thinking about it, he changed his mind and chose to open the portal 1 kilometer away from the battlefield. This part is not too consuming. He spent about 1/10 of his physical strength to transform divine will and finally opened the portal completely. At the same time, he quickly explained the situation to the two. Kala. Inside the maze, a 3-meter-high portal with mysterious patterns appeared out of thin air in a faint light and slowly opened. Click, the figures of Li Yi and the other two stepped out from the other side of the door. He Guangzi's eyebrows moved slightly. Relying on his experience, he judged from the movement outside the passage, one side is the Vulcan sequence, and the other side should be the alien god sequence. The characteristics are mostly related to shadows. The opponent's strength is only lower than Lao Zhao. In this way, I will lure the enemy first, and you two will choose the opportunity to attack later. How about it? Tan Yaozu spread his hands. If you are the commander, I have no objection, Li Yu said. Just follow Brother He's arrangement, I can do anything. He Guangzi nodded slightly. Although the strength is not as terrifying as Hang Suor, we also need to be cautious. At this stage of the strongest, there will always be some special abilities, and there is a chance to reverse everything. As he said, he took a deep breath, and the Thunder God characteristics outside his body danced like a wild snake, with an extremely shocking momentum. It seems that he is ready to alarm the enemy. Chapter 408 Interrogation. He Guangzi's strategy was obvious. He made a startling first move, and then Li Yu and Tan Yaozu made a feint to the east and attacked in the west. As a fierce and burning electric light exploded beside him, the pure black armored man in the distance immediately realized that he was about to be surrounded by dumplings. His body shook and turned into a flowing shadow and hurried along the ground. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. This shadow covered his body and split into 7 or 8, making it impossible to see where his real body was. Suddenly, a thunderbolt burst out in the passage, turning into a thunder-shaped rain column, shooting down in all directions, intercepting these shadows indiscriminately. It was the ultimate move of the heavenly position that Yi Guangzi had prepared in advance, the thunderstorm-splitting light. This move brewed the characteristics of lightning into the appearance of rain columns of the essence of lightning, dense and woven, which was a group attack trick. Before coming out of the portal, Yi Guangzi clearly judged that this armored man must be good at escaping. Now that he was alarmed in advance, he would definitely choose to escape from this position where there was still space. Sure enough, all this was not what Guang expected. The armored man was intercepted by his thunderstorm-splitting light and stopped. Crackling. Amid the sound of a series of lightning hitting the hard armor, the pure black figure of the armored man appeared in a trembling state. There were obviously more than a dozen winding lightning marks on his armor, and smoke was curling. At the same time, Li Yu and Tan Yaozu also took the opportunity to launch. First, Tan Yaozu flicked his fingers in the void, as if he was stroking an invisible string. Ding ding ding. Like the music of stringed instruments, it lightly passed in front and fell on the body of the pure black armored man, forming a strong coordination constraint. This coordination is invisible and intangible, but it changed the environment outside the armored man, becoming sticky and scorching, and his actions were suddenly suppressed. At the same time, Li Yi's body turned into lightning, and a thunderbolt flashed. Swish! The deformation characteristics changed the internal organs and brain, and coordinated with the lightning, and instantly appeared outside the armored man, and punched out. Bang! The armored man was hit in the chest by a punch, and the armor that had been struck by fire and lightning instantly shattered. Snap, snap, it broke into more than a dozen pieces, some fell to the ground, and some still stuck to the armored man's chest. But Li Yi followed up with another ice-piercing punch, using the power of the freezing concept to blast into the body. With a crackling sound, the armored man was immediately frozen successfully by the three people working together. At this moment, the three people were no longer wuxia. After the joint efforts and training in the first two levels of the Enlightenment Mountain, they had already had a tacit understanding. After two more initiations and one more penetration, the divinity was sufficient, the physical body was strengthened, and the strength was greatly improved. In addition, they were well prepared, and they defeated the enemy in just 3 moves. Throughout the whole process, Zhao He didn't even have room to make a move, and just stared at the three people's operation in amazement. Tan Yaozu walked over leisurely with his hands behind his back. "Old Zhao, what's the matter? Are you stunned? Why don't you say a word?" He smiled proudly. Although Tan Yaozu's current strength is still a long way from Zhao He's. But looking at Zhao He's unbelievable expression, he was undoubtedly very upset. Zhao He came back to his senses and looked at the three people with an inexplicable expression. "How come you have made such a great progress in strength in just 2 or 3 days? Li Yi is fine, it's normal for his strength to change every day. Why is it the same for Lao He and Lao Tan?" Tan Yaozu laughed. "Lao Zhao, this is fate, you don't understand." He Guangzi laughed. "Lao Tan, that's enough. Deputy Director Zhao, where is Qin Bangcheng?" Zhao He said. "He and I encountered a group of armored men and were forced to separate." A group. The three people were a little shocked. One armored man is already so difficult to deal with, and there is actually a group here? Could it be that other humans have transformed into armored men? Similar to the result of the wandering souls outside this entire mountain, Tan Yaozu restrained his expression and said in a deep voice. Zhao He shook his head and said, "I'm not sure about their origins, but they are all top players. At least some of them are at the high level of the heavenly rank. There are 6 of them at the strongest level, for a total of 12 people. I have 2 of them here, one has been killed by me, and the other is the one in your hand, Li Yi." In other words, on the Qin Bang side, 1 person is fighting 10. Yes, there is no time to lose, we should go over and help as soon as possible. Zhao He didn't ask Li Yi and the others too many questions. Although he had a lot of doubts in his heart, including the strength of the 3 people, and how Lu Yancheng disappeared and reappeared, etc. Although he really wanted to know, but he also knew the priorities, and the focus now should be on helping Qin Longchuan. However, Li Yi frowned and said, "The problem is that State Chief Qin is not on this Wuxian labyrinth." "Deputy Chief Zhao, where did you separate before?" Zhao He was about to ask how he knew Qin Longchuan was not there, but Yi Guangzi explained directly, "We have already passed the trial in advance and gained control of the Wuxian labyrinth. Now the authority is in Li Yi's hands. If he says he is not there, then it is very likely that he is really not in the Wuxian labyrinth." Zhao He was stunned. "Okay, I won't ask about the details for now. I just want to confirm one thing." "Lao He, are you kidding?" He Guangzi nodded. "Of course, how can I joke in this situation? Then where did Lao Qin go?" Zhao He chose to believe Yi Guangzi's statement, but in this way, the situation became confusing again. Maybe it has something to do with this group of armored men. "Let's have a trial." Li Yi activated the burning electric property and stimulated the head of the pure black armored man under his hand. "I have some doubts about this group of armored men," He Guangzi pondered and said. "The last time I encountered a soul body, I didn't collapse so quickly. At the beginning, a mysterious force hit me hard, and the soul body took advantage of the situation to invade. Therefore, the source of that mysterious power is also worth exploring." Tan Yaozu also nodded and said, "When I was pulled down from the surface of Wudao Mountain, I also encountered a large group of soul bodies. If Li Yi hadn't helped me temporarily, I might have been hit. Later, I ran to the entrance of the inner layer to avoid the continued invasion of that group of soul bodies. Since everyone entered Guotao Mountain, Hangsuer has not seen much, but they have seen a lot of soul bodies from the third era. If they don't understand the purpose and specific power of this group of soul bodies, they will naturally be unable to sleep and eat. After a while, as Li Yi thought the armored man's brain, the armored man suddenly opened his eyes. A sharp black light flashed from his eyes and pierced Li Yi. Zzz! Li Yi raised his hand as if he had expected it. The divine power of Hades permeated his palm, forming an amazing concept of freezing properties, freezing the black light into a light ice cube, translucent and black. I have already grasped your inner fluctuations, no action can escape my eyes. Now, I ask you questions and you answer them. You cannot hide anything, otherwise, I will let your soul, which has finally been revived, be completely annihilated in this world. Chapter 409 Intelligence. Li Yi had mastered the means of deciphering the brainwave language from the last armored man, so naturally he had a way to find the information he wanted from the brainwaves of other third-era armored men. Although if the other party tried his best to control his thoughts and resolutely refused to think about those core secrets, it would be difficult for him to get enough information. But basically, it was difficult for these armored men to defend themselves when their souls were stimulated by the thunder and lightning. As Li Yi asked questions, even if the armored man remained silent, he still cracked out a lot of things. However, these things were similar to the content of the previous armored man. Either it was the strategy information of Guotao Mountain, or the specific path information of the maze. There were also some special scene pictures. Li Yi carefully identified the translated pictures, which should have taken place in the third era. There were divine mechas thousands of meters high, and silhouettes of various large tonnage planetary-level long-range weapons. They were fierce and murderous, and they were actual war scenes rarely seen in various materials. The skill of converting brainwaves into pictures is a branch skill extended from the perfect level deciphering. It is considered a newly developed one. Originally, he couldn't do this, but as he got better at decoding and absorbed parallel memories, he was able to translate the other party's consciousness through brain waves, which was not information like language. Of course, this step also required luck. When the accumulated memory fragments were enough and the samples were richer, he might be able to see through the detailed picture in the enemy's mind at a glance. However, that was a story for later. At present, there was still no information to be found just by looking at the picture. The core information he wanted, such as the origin of this group of people and the difference between them and the clone of Supreme Puang, was not available for the time being. After thinking for a while, Li Yi switched his divine will and continuously injected the divine will of the Thunder God sequence into the brain of the armored man, rubbing it repeatedly. Because the armored man's body was frozen, most of his divinity was equivalent to being sealed. Therefore, he could only use his body and soul to resist this wave of the divine will of the Thunder God sequence. Although the intensity of the divine will that Li Yi currently stimulated was not too high, it was combined with the acupuncture force, which was subtle and continuous. Soon, the armored man's soul was constantly fluctuating, and a large number of repeated brain waves were generated. However, this armored man was not as easy to obtain information as the previous armored man, and he never gave out more critical information. Li Yi deciphered for a long time, but he still didn't get enough surprises. Is it because the current armored man is stronger? Or are these armored men one of the clones of Puang Supreme? Because he noticed that the information of one clone was stolen, he strengthened the protection of other clones? For a moment, several possibilities flashed through Li Yi's mind. At the same time, he smiled and said, "Interesting, your soul is roaring, but you can still remain silent. I didn't expect your bones to be so tough." While speaking, Li Yi adjusted the state of excitement of the divine will. The obscure third-era language squeezed out from between his teeth and entered the ears of the armored man. It was invaded by the divine will of the God of Fire sequence carried in the sound, and its face changed drastically. The divine will of the God of Fire sequence is generally known for its tyranny, high temperature, and burning everything. But the Vulcan sequence will that Li Yi used at this time was quite gentle. In the gentleness, there was a trace of extremely fluid and hot characteristics. Once it invaded the armored man's mind, it was in harmony with Li Yi's Thunder God sequence will, and had a strong erosion effect on the armored man's soul. This wave was very sudden. In the middle of the armored man adapting to part of the Thunder God sequence will, it suddenly acted ruthlessly, and all of a sudden eroded the armored man's soul like a candle in the wind, swaying and flickering. Zizzy, zizzy. The armored man's brain waves were obviously disordered again. Liu seized the opportunity and quickly recorded and deciphered. The other three people watched Liu quietly. Everyone has their own expertise. They all knew that when it came to interrogation and deciphering, Liu was the expert. After a while, Liu opened his eyes. Got it. No matter how much they keep it secret, I still found a trace, Tanyaozu asked hurriedly. How is it? What is the situation now? Liu said in a deep voice. First of all, let's make sure that these armored men that Brother Zhao encountered are essentially the clones of Supreme Puaying. Not only that, even the group of souls wandering on the surface of Wudao Mountain are the clone seeds released by Supreme Puaying. Everyone was shocked when they heard this. All of them? If they add them up, wouldn't there be at least dozens of souls that can invade the strongest level of flesh? If we count these unknown flesh that have been transformed, wouldn't it be more? This astonishing number, even the Silver Strong race and the Star race can't gather so many, right? One person is comparable to Golden race, or even more? And this is still a suppressed or sealed Supreme, right? Although everyone didn't say anything, they all felt a heavy pressure. What about Qin Bang Zhang? Where did he go? There are two possibilities. One is that he stepped into the hidden portal in the maze and was teleported away directly. It is neither a clearance nor a failure. In essence, it is an exile trap. Second, he was probably taken to their transformation pool by the armored people. Transformation pool, He Guangzi frowned. The tool to transform Qin Bangxiang into an armored man, that's about it. It's probably because Qin Bangxiang is too powerful. They can't transform him directly and must use tools, so what's going on now? Do you know where he is? I know roughly. The question now is how many times Pu Ying Supreme can make a move now. Hearing this, Tanyaozu hurriedly asked, what do you mean? Is Pu Ying Supreme suppressed by the side of this transformation pool? Very likely. Liu nodded slowly. Everyone was stunned. If Pu Ying Supreme was right there, wouldn't it be a waste for them to go and save Qin Longchuan? Zhao He frowned and said, what kind of existence is this Supreme Puaying? What exactly is the so-called suppression? After all, he had not been in a group with Li Yi and others before, so he didn't know much about this sudden Supreme title. He Guangzi explained, in short. In the Enlightenment Divine Mountain, there was a supreme-level strongman of the Third Era who survived with the help of the power of the Enlightenment Divine Mountain. But according to the information deciphered by Li Yi, although the Supreme Puaying successfully survived with the power of the Enlightenment Divine Mountain, he was restricted by it from then on. Therefore, the Supreme Puaying should be in a state similar to being suppressed at present, and cannot exert his full strength. Most of the souls he released were preparations for escaping from the Enlightenment Divine Mountain. Zhao He understood and said, since they are suppressed and their strength is limited, it means that we are not without a chance, right? Chapter 410 Secret. Although Zhao He thought the situation could still be saved, everyone was still not optimistic. Let's go take a look first. We have at least earned a Washin maze. If it doesn't work, we can use this thing. It will probably have some effect, right? Tanyaozu suggested. He Guangzi said, we must take action. Lao Qin is so powerful. If he dies here, it will definitely have a big impact on our subsequent strategic battles. Moreover, even if we don't take action, these armored men may not let us go. That's right. How can a tiger be allowed to come to our bedside? Zhao He shouted, why are you guys so dejected? Haven't we encountered enough powerful enemies along the way? He Guangzi patted Zhao He on the shoulder and said, Lao Zhao, you don't have to be so angry. We are not dejected, but thinking about how to break the deadlock. A supreme powerhouse has two major levels, quasi-god and demigod. Together, we may not be able to beat a demigod. Now there is a supreme powerhouse in front of us. What's the point of getting angry? Do you want to rush over and let all of us be fed? Zhao He was not taking advantage of the issue, but wanted to encourage his teammates. As a senior supreme powerhouse, he knew the huge gap in each stage. The gap between demigods and supreme beings is much larger than the gap between supreme beings and high-level heavenly beings. Supreme beings and heavenly beings are only a part of the inhuman stage after all. Demigods, however, are the beginning of entering the realm of gods. Not only are all the divinities in their bodies transformed into divine will, they also have a larger reserve of divine will and can deal more horrible damage to divine will. Not only that, all kinds of characteristics of demigods basically have conceptual characteristics, which is almost a dimensionality reduction attack on non-conceptual characteristics below demigods. And the strength of the Supreme is even higher than that of demigods and quasi-gods. It is conceivable that even if this Supreme Puang was suppressed, some of the tricks that were randomly revealed would probably be able to crush this group of new Supreme beings. Li Yi, can you move this Wuxian maze? He Guangzi looked at Li Yi. Yes, but I'm afraid that my current reserve of divine will is far from enough. I need to accumulate at least an hour to accumulate enough divine will to move him. However, it only takes 20 minutes to transform and shrink, but it still takes an hour to enlarge again. No matter, then you shrink the Wuxian labyrinth first and carry it over. We'll see if it can be used when the time comes. Li Yi understood what Yi Guangzi meant and nodded in approval. Since the situation has come to this point, we have to use everything we can as much as possible. Immediately, he focused on mobilizing the power of his physical body and stimulating his divine will. Only when he reaches the realm of fighting divine will can he use the power of his physical body to transform the power of divine will. However, although his efficiency in transforming divine will with his physical body is not bad, it is a drop in the bucket compared to the huge requirements of the Wuxian labyrinth. Unless there is a divine mecha, he can use the divine mecha to complete the skill, which can meet the needs in one go. It's a pity that the divine mecha was excluded and not in his hands. Or, when his physical body is strong enough to be comparable to the demigod level, it may be enough to meet this condition. But this is obviously a later story. While waiting for Li Yi to gather his divine will, several people discussed the specific battle plan. He Guangzi followed Li Yi and interrogated the armored man. As the strategic brain of the team, He Guangzi's learning ability is naturally amazing. After the language of the third era was cracked by experts, he quickly mastered it. Thanks to Li Yi's previous interrogation, the armored man had basically broken through the defense, but he gradually set other small information. For example, the specific manpower, the general environment where Puang Supreme was suppressed, and the structure of other areas of Wudao Mountain, etc. He Guangzi's interrogation style is similar to Li Yi, but there are also some differences. Both of them have microelectric characteristics, and they have developed the ability to identify brain waves. However, He Guangzi's deciphering ability is not as strong as Li Yi's, so his judgment standard is more based on judging whether the other party is lying, so as to gradually extend the topic and obtain corresponding information. In terms of efficiency, He Guangzi's method was much slower, but it was better because the people around him could hear the specific information, saving the process of relaying it to others. During the process, He Guangzi would also use his own original torture method to force details. In a blink of an eye, at the 15th minute, the armored man mentioned a piece of information that shocked everyone. My main body is the supreme universal response, and his major is the way of the all-transforming universal illumination and the true God. He can split into thousands of bodies, avoid disasters and eliminate disasters, and be omnipresent. When the disaster came, he made arrangements in advance and responded calmly. He lived through a great era. Although he was trapped in the mountain of enlightenment, he still smiled and watched the wind and clouds. He is a respected one. When an era is over, he should have woken up again after the disaster of the previous era and escaped from the mountain of enlightenment. It's a pity that there are great terrors and mysteries in the mountain of enlightenment. When he used the mountain of enlightenment to avoid disasters, he was also quietly eroding him. Therefore, he is now losing his mind. Although our clones are still connected, they are gradually dispersed and each has its own system. Abducting your friends is naturally not the order of the main body. The big brother of our faction wants to change to a better body, so he attacked you. If you want to save them, just go and save them. The sooner the better. Don't keep me waiting. Hey! As soon as the words fell, suddenly, everyone heard a muffled bang. The head of the armored man actually exploded on the spot. In an instant, green brains splashed in all directions. Fortunately, He Guangzi had been prepared. At the moment of the explosion, a lightning net was covered, which offset most of the shock wave of the explosion. Otherwise, the explosion of the armored man's head would have caused a lot of damage to everyone. This guy actually exploded. Tanyaozu was shaken by the aftermath, and his eyes revealed a not very happy mood. He was not unhappy about being injured by the explosion, but he was unhappy that the armored man suddenly killed himself after only saying so much intelligence. Moreover, the splashing green brains made Tanyaozu a little agitated for some reason. It's probably because he saw that he couldn't escape from us. He Guangzi stood up, patted his palm that was stained with the green brains, and removed it with his divinity. The next second, He Guangzi's calm expression suddenly froze. This green brain flower could not be removed by the divine power, but instead entangled with it like a poison in the tarsal bones. Damn it, the brain flower that the armored man blew up was actually poisonous. Everyone, immediately stimulate the divine power. Everyone also quickly realized the problem. Since the divine power is not working, then stimulate the divine power directly. In an instant, the entire maze passage was filled with amazing divine power flames. Chapter 411 Shrinkage. Fortunately, the situation did not deteriorate to a worse direction. With everyone activating their divine powers in time, the flying green brains did not cause more damage. However, the skin that had been touched before had already left clearly visible scars. Including Tan Yaozu, who happened to inhale some of the green brains, his temper became much more irritable. His brows were tightly knitted and his face looked very ugly. He Guangzi patted Tan Yaozu on the shoulder. "Are you okay?" Tan Yaozu shook his head. "Very bad, I just want to kill everything now. If you hadn't reminded me early just now, I'm afraid I can't control myself and take action now." Hearing this, the expressions of several people were a little solemn. "When Li Yi shrinks the Wudao mountain, why don't we go back and get reinforcements?" Zhao He suggested. "It's useless for us to go there now. Why don't we see if we can bring in the divine mecha? If we have the divine mecha, we still have a chance of winning. After all, our opponent now is not Puang Supreme, but just a clone of him who acted on his own initiative, isn't it?" This proposal was also recognized by He Guangzi. "Not only that, we have to go back and rescue the 2 trophies in Lao Lu who have amnesia in our hands." As they were talking, the 20 minutes were just over. Li Yi opened his eyes and said, "Let's go, let's take the captives out of the portal and leave the Wudao mountain maze." Naturally, several people had no objection. Rumble. Amid the huge sound, this huge square Wudao mountain maze, like a large island, kept leaving the Wudao mountain under the control of the authority seal in Li Yi's hand. Rocks fell like debris, and in a blink of an eye, they were as dense as rain. Amid the noise, the Wushan labyrinth began to shrink. At first, the change was not big, and it was difficult for everyone to distinguish. It was not until halfway through the second minute that everyone noticed that the giant had obviously lost weight. Seeing the shrinking speed, everyone also gave up the idea of using it to deal with the Supreme Puang. There was no other way. The 20-minute reserve of divine will could only shrink at this slow speed. If a fight really broke out, the opponent would probably launch an attack and kill the Wushan labyrinth before it shrank. You know, even if Li Yi's reserve of divine will was not high, he could use divine will level fighting skills to continuously stimulate transformation, and the efficiency was extremely amazing. Judging from the total output per unit time, it was not inferior to the combined efforts of 5 or 6 senior Supreme Masters. After another 10 minutes, the shrinking speed of the Wushan labyrinth began to increase, almost 1 size per second. Finally, at the 14th minute, the Wushan labyrinth completely shrank into a palm-sized square crystal, which slowly fell into Li Yi's palm. Throughout the whole process, the early stage was not very eye-catching, but the final changes shocked many people. In the last few seconds, the Wushan maze became a starship scale, and suddenly shrank to the size of a palm. The changes at this moment were more amazing and rapid than all the previous ones combined. Wow, the technology of the first era has actually achieved such a terrifying state. The mustard seed Sumeru, the universe in the sleeve, the gravel world, nothing more than this. Tan Yaozu carried Lu Yansheng on his back and floated on the Wudao Shenshin teleportation array, marveling. He Guangzi's eyes also flashed with curiosity. "Will this thing be heavy in my hand?" Li Yi said. "The feel and weight are almost the same as ordinary gems." Zhao He said, "Although I am shocked, now is not the time to be shocked. Li Yi, make a portal as soon as possible and see if we can teleport out." Tan Yaozu stretched out his hand to stop him. "No, I don't think we have figured it out yet. If we teleport out now, can we come back? If we can't come back, then Lao Qin will be completely hopeless." As soon as the words came out, several people paused. Yes, this possibility does need to be carefully considered. Several people looked at Li Yi. Li Yi said, "I'm not sure, because the way to teleport out is not based on the Wushan maze itself, but on this authority seal. According to the information I reviewed before, with this authority seal, the portal can be activated. But the information did not say whether it can be successfully activated outside." Damn it, the armored man just blew himself up again. What should we do? Tan Yaozu was anxious. Zhao He thought for a moment and said, "How about this? We split into 2 groups. One group will go outside to ask for help and find our divine mecha to see if it can be sent in, and the other group will stay here to support and keep the two portals open. How about it? Liu nodded and said, it seems that this is the only way. I will stay here and keep the portal. But I'm not sure how long the current reserve of divine will can last. You have to do it as soon as possible, otherwise I'm not sure if I can open the teleportation array a second time in a short time. He Guangzi said, I'll stay with you. No, Laohi, you also have a lot of information. After you go out, you need to record the information you get inside as soon as possible. Zhao He shook his head and said firmly, my divine will reserves are higher than yours. If Li Yi is exhausted, I can replace him. Lao He, Lao Tan, the two of you take Lao Lu and the two ancients out. You don't have to argue, this is an order I gave as the Deputy Minister of the Federation. Everyone, execute it. Tan Yaozu wanted to say something, but now that Zhao He said so, he would follow his command. As a mecha master and a soldier, it is his instinct to obey the command of his superiors. It is also a calibrator to reconcile conflicts when they occur. Soon, Liu used the method and the intelligence to activate the external portal with the authority seal in his hand. Zizzy. Amidst the wonderful spatial vibrations, a 3-meter-high portal with mysterious patterns appeared in front of the few people. The door frame is pure silver, and the style is simple and gorgeous. With a click, the portal opened up and down with a mechanical sound. Several people looked at each other and then quickly stepped towards the portal. Liu maintained the portal and calculated the basic consumption of maintaining the portal to the outside world in his mind. All of a sudden, he came to a conclusion. 10 minutes, my current divine will reserve can last for 10 minutes. Hearing this, Zhao He felt it was difficult. He had just clearly felt how amazing Liu's divine will output was. Such an amazing amount is only slightly inferior to his, but it can only last for 10 minutes. It's a pity that due to insufficient intelligence, they don't have the capital to gamble now. And they dare not close the portal directly. If it is closed now, whether it can be reopened in the future is unknown. After all, even Qin Longchuan, Lin Jianlong and others have not been able to venture into the Enlightenment Mountain a second time before. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 412 Demigod. Just 3 minutes after the teleportation array was activated and several people went there, suddenly, a loud bang was heard from afar. This loud bang was very deep, like the bombardment of a supergiant drum, carrying a huge force, and it was transmitted from a distance at once. Immediately afterwards, the ground where the two were located also shook violently. Earthquake? Liu followed the source of the sound and activated his one-eye eyes. He looked far away and saw that on a small hill in the distance, countless heat currents were gushing upwards. At the same time, a familiar figure turned upwards in the heat current, and an ice dragon wrapped him around him and rushed into the sky. Isn't this person Qin Longchuan? Wasn't he caught by the 8 armored men? Boom. As Qin Longchuan left the hill, the ground around him cracked wildly like a landslide. From the countless cracks in the ground, more than a dozen dark giant hands stretched out like lightning and grabbed Qin Longchuan. Qin Longchuan easily avoided the attacks of more than a dozen giant hands in midair, flying higher and higher. At this time, Zhao He also obviously discovered Qin Longchuan's figure, and immediately stimulated his divine will, resisted the suppression, and waved his arms, gathering the extremely surging divinity. These divinities flashed an astonishing red flame, and suddenly formed a 100-meter-high flaming dragon above his head, coiling and howling. Roar! The astonishing roar of flames tilted out from the mouth of the flaming dragon, soaring tens of thousands of meters away. Wherever it passed, the space was distorted and burned black cracks. Moreover, the speed was extremely fast. It was only at the current position when the move was made. In the blink of an eye, the roar and power carrying the flame was close to Qin Longchuan's position. In an instant, it crossed a distance of more than 10,000 meters, which was 3 points faster than the ordinary divine energy cannon. It was Zhao He's strongest move, the fire dragon's roar in the sky. With the might of a strong man, he could easily condense an attack coverage comparable to that of a B-class mecha by exerting his full power with his divine will. His attack was meant to help Qin Longchuan and to attract his attention so that he could escape to this side. Judging from the powerful power of the tentacles that could split the earth and collapse the mountains, any one of them could break the ridge of a mountain range, and at least be comparable to the physical attack power of an A-class mecha. Therefore, even Qin Longquan must escape. In an instant, the red flames roared with an astonishing sound, crossing the airspace under Qin Longquan's feet and hitting all of the dozen pitch-black giant hands. Boom! The moment the flames touched the pitch-black flames, they suddenly flowed all over the pitch-black giant hands, and the fire became even stronger. Even part of the flame power penetrated into the inside of the pitch-black giant hands amid the roar. However, the flames only raged for 1 or 2 seconds. The pitch-black giant hands shook together. The amazing divine will, like a flood from a mountain or sea, suddenly spread out in all directions in the shape of a silver halo visible to the naked eye. Buzz! The surrounding space seemed to collapse, forming an amazing suction force, sucking in all the external matter and flames. As this amazing divine will spread, all the flames were instantly extinguished and swallowed up. However, Qin Longquan borrowed Zhao He's long-range attack and successfully stabilized his position. His body flew away and avoided the further attack of the pitch-black giant hand. He quickly glanced in mid-air and saw Li Yi and Zhao He on the teleportation array in the distance. Not only that, the extremely conspicuous teleportation gate was immediately seen by him, and his pupils shrank slightly. He understood everything, and without hesitation, the divinity outside his body burst out, forming a flower-like ice flame, which quickly connected to form a prison of ice flame in front of him, covering a distance of 100 meters. With a crackling sound, the ice flame prison condensed in an instant, with a huge momentum and very amazing. As the ice flame prison was formed, the giant hand that stretched out from the ground was directly trapped in it. After doing this, Qin Longquan did not continue to attack. Instead, his body shook and turned into mist. With a wind, he disappeared silently. Oh my god, has Lao Qin cultivated the body of the ice god? Zhao He, who saw this scene from afar, widened his eyes and was a little shocked. This is the body of the ice god, a skill that can only be fully mastered by demigods and above. Li Yi suddenly realized something and turned around quickly. He saw Qin Longquan standing behind the two of them with his hands behind his back, smiling calmly. His appearance and clothing were almost the same as the state he saw when Li Yi separated last time. It can be seen that Qin Longquan was not as embarrassed as Zhao He thought in the previous battle with the 8 armored men. Zhao He felt Li Yi's movement and turned around. Seeing Qin Longquan's smiling face, he was immediately startled, as if he had seen a ghost. There was nothing he could do. The speed was too fast. It took only about a second to cross a distance of 30,000 to 40,000 meters. This place is a mountain of enlightenment with 100 times the gravity and great divine suppression. Being able to reach such an amazing speed in this place, Zhao He dared not imagine how fast Qin Longquan could reach in the outside world. Even if it was just a short distance teleportation, it was amazing enough. With the speed, Zhao He could not imagine any other possibility except the superposition of the body of the ice god and the demigod. Old Qin, you can't have been promoted to demigod, right? Zhao He's voice actually stuttered a little. It's no wonder that Zhao He lost his composure. This is a demigod, the first demigod among humans. Qin Longquan smiled slightly. I was lucky to gain a little in the duel with the 8 armored men, and finally succeeded in breaking the shackles that I had been grinding for a long time. Really promoted to demigod? Li Yi and Zhao He looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. In this way, the strength of humans can be on par with the golden race of aliens? This is really good news. Li Yi smiled and congratulated. Congratulations to Qin Bangchang for making a great progress. Now our subsequent strategic battles will definitely be more confident. Don't rush to say these things. The tentacle monster will probably escape from my ice lotus prison soon. Li Yi, you are taking the portal to the outside world, right? Obviously, Qin Longquan, who had been in and out of Wudao Divine Mountain several times, recognized that the portal maintained by Li Yi was the portal to the outside world. Li Yi was stunned for a moment and said, Chief Qin Bangchang is not going to work together to solve the dark tentacle. Solve it. That tentacle is a top-level demigod. Even if I advance, I am not a match. Qin Longquan smiled and said, let's go, let's go, let's go quickly. If we don't leave now, will we become the meal of the demigod here? Li Yi and Zhao He still have a lot of questions to ask at this moment, but seeing that Qin Longquan, a demigod, is so alert, after thinking about it, they decided to step out of Wudao Divine Mountain together. Although they had previously discussed that Li Yi and Zhao He would maintain the portal, their original purpose was to call for reinforcements. Since Qin Longquan was already safe and there was another demigod threatening them, they had no choice but to change their plan. The three of them stepped into the portal one after another. Chapter 413 Return. After stepping out of the portal, the scene in front of the three people changed drastically. With some extremely strong distortion of time and space, Li Yi's soul felt dizzy. After a while, he regained consciousness and looked at the surrounding environment. The frozen ground, the familiar feeling of divine suppression, is this the prison of the gods? It seems that this trip back is relatively smooth. Li Yi breathed a sigh of relief. When he was teleporting halfway, he was still worried about whether there would be any problems with the portal. Now it seems that the authority seal of this Wuxian maze is still very stable. At a glance, the traces of divinity produced when Tan Yaozu and He Guangzi left are still very obvious. In the distance, the position of the previous entrance has disappeared. Seeing this scene, Li Yi's heart tightened. Would the Pluto Mecha be stranded in the cyclone area outside the Wudao Divine Mountain? Here, Zhao He's mouth twitched, and he was speechless. Will our Divine Mecha be gone just like that? Qin Longquan narrowed his eyes slightly, and his sight passed through the original position of the entrance to the Wudao Divine Mountain, as if penetrating layers of time and space. There seemed to be faint stars flowing in his pupils, which were very deep. I can vaguely see that our Divine Mecha should be left in the space-time layer between this Henshin prison and the Wudao Divine Mountain, Qin Longquan said. Space-time layer. Li Yi and Zhao He were both a little surprised. However, their surprises were different. Zhao He was surprised that Qin Longquan actually had the power to see through the space-time layer. And Li Yi was surprised that there was a space-time layer here. He was quite familiar with this thing, because his innate ability was also somewhat related to this space-time layer. After all, the space-time layer was essentially a kind of parallel world. It's just that this parallel world is more short-lived, similar to the bubble produced when one world collides with another world. Compared with an entire huge world, the space-time layer is naturally very small in scale. Once the space-time cycle in the space-time bubble is broken, the space-time layer will directly shatter. Li Yi thought, if he slept in the vicinity of this space-time layer, he didn't know what would happen. On this side, Qin Longquan explained, after reaching the level of demigod, my main godhood will become stronger, forming a basic state where godhood is characteristics and characteristics are godhood, and I can extract the ice god's will at any time, and the ice god's will naturally has more than one wonderful use. Seeing the potential frozen structure of matter and time and space is also my basic ability now, although I can't fully distinguish it. With this ability, I can see the time and space connection between our current time and space and the Wudao Divine Mountain. And even see the details, and this is also the main reason why I saw the portal next to Li Yi at that time and knew that this portal could allow us to leave safely. Hiss. Zhao He took a breath and said, is the demigod so powerful? Lao Qin, I can't understand the change in your strength. After all, Li Yi is not a senior and powerful person, and he can't immediately understand how deep the shock hidden in Zhao He's words is. However, he tasted a different taste when he tasted Zhao He's tone. Brother Zhao's mood at the moment is very shaken. Qin Longquan smiled and said, although time and space are the most mysterious and powerful things in this world, at least we have stepped half a foot into the realm of God, so there are still some differences. As he spoke, he raised his palm lightly, and a ray of ice flame leaped up. In the area touched by the ice flame, a faint layer of ice cracks began to appear in the space, showing a beautiful aqua blue, shining brightly. In the cracks, there were also traces of deep and invisible pure black, as if swallowing all the light. Zhao He's pupils shrank slightly. The space was actually frozen by the ice flame condensed by Qin Longquan. And it can even freeze cracks in the space? This freezing ability has far exceeded the general concept characteristics, right? Even if it is a freezing characteristic with conceptual characteristics, it needs to reach a considerable scale, such as using the Divine Mecha to launch a trick to freeze the space, right? The strength of the characteristics displayed by Qin Longquan is undoubtedly far beyond the top powerhouses. Old Qin, you've given me so many surprises. You can easily activate this kind of conceptual characteristics of strength. Demigod level, that's awesome. Zhao He took a deep breath and smiled helplessly. It was precisely because he knew the limits of the strongest level that he felt that Qin Longquan's performance had surpassed a conventional demigod level. He knew. Was he hiding so deeply before? Or is it related to the 8 armored men? Thinking of this, Zhao He gave Li Yi a subtle look, and Li Yi understood. Old Qin, since we are safe now, why don't you tell me what you just encountered? Qin Longquan said, then I'll tell you in detail. In summary, it's basically an encounter, being abused, exploding, and then counter-killing. It's that simple. You're asking me to tell you in detail? This is too simple, isn't it? Zhao He was embarrassed. Li Yi laughed awkwardly and said, is this the terrifying simplified skills of a demigod-level strong man? Strong, too strong, Qin Longquan shrugged and said, the situation is that simple. Also, old Zhao, I can see what you are suspicious of. You suspect that I have been possessed by the armored man, right? You two don't have to act here. The two said nothing. Don't worry, I'm still me, the original one, guaranteed to be genuine. Qin Longquan smiled and said, there's really nothing to say about the battle at that time. 4 supreme-level warriors and 4 high-level heavenly warriors, to be honest, although they are strong enough to crush me together, they are not enough to put me in a desperate situation. I myself have been waiting for the opportunity to be promoted to demigod. Maybe it's a natural accumulation, maybe the soul is a few points stronger, or maybe I need a hardy battle. Although the border star battle with the Star Clan at that time was not bad, it was not too dangerous and not exciting enough for me. Zhao He thought for a moment and said, okay, maybe my thinking is also wrong. According to the armored people I saw before, if they want to exert their powerful strength, they generally need to undergo genetic transformation. Since your genes have not changed and your appearance has not changed, it seems that I shouldn't doubt you. Your suspicion is correct. In that situation, you should indeed doubt it, but if you are real, I will be even more sad. What? You are about to break through, but you hid it from me for so long. We are such good friends, but you still hid it from me? You know, if something goes wrong with your breakthrough, you may not be able to be promoted smoothly next time. Zhao He scolded, you are the head of the Federation, but you are so ignorant of the importance of things like this. How could you hide it from me? What? Are you afraid that I have a problem? Qin Longquan twitched his mouth. Old Zhao, this is not the same thing. Fuck, how is it not the same thing? As your deputy, I actually doubted you because I misjudged your strength. If I was a little impulsive and attacked you directly, don't you think this is outrageous in itself? The two suddenly fell into an argument. Li Yi listened for a while and felt a little strange. Chapter 414 Falling Asleep. 1 hour had passed since Li Yi and his group left Wudao Mountain. Although Li Yi was curious about the conflict between Zhao He and Qin Longquan, he did not ask much. First, he did not know their past. Second, the people rescued from Wudao Mountain should be awakened as soon as possible. Third, the divine mechas lost by everyone in Wudao Mountain were also a problem that needed to be solved as soon as possible. These were not ordinary mechas, but a lot of S-level and A-level high-level mechas. If these mechas were gone, they could be replaced. But it was not easy to find another divine mecha with such a high degree of fit. Because Qin Longquan could see the location of the space-time interlayer, what he needed to do now was to find another divine mecha to directly open up the space membrane between the two worlds and retrieve their divine mechas. As for whether he could enter the outer area of Wudao Mountain through this entrance, it depended on luck. If he was lucky, he could continue to explore Wudao Mountain. However, he had to wait for a long time before the new S-level divine mechas were delivered. Therefore, Li Yi was guarding the space-time interlayer at this moment, preparing to fall asleep. Anyway, it was a break, so he would see how many memory fragments he had accumulated during this period and replenish his soul strength. Recently, the divine gene has skyrocketed, and his divine surplus has been reduced a lot. However, choosing the location of this space-time interlayer to fall asleep naturally has its own particularities. In the past, he would definitely not have thought of falling asleep here. But recently, his strength has greatly increased, and the total amount of divinity has reached the level of the 9th stage of the heavenly position. His status in all aspects is different now. Therefore, he has a certain degree of confidence in using his powerful soul to trace back to the early memory fragments of this space-time interlayer. Moreover, when he upgraded the Hades mecha before, he also swiped out a lot of memory fragments of space-time knowledge and skills belonging to Dawn Disciple Yi. With this foundation, it is also possible to swipe out more relevant knowledge, or even some secrets. At this moment, he lay on the ground, and fell asleep soundly in this bone-chilling prison of the gods. In the dream plane, Li Yi's figure directly emerged. I can actually swipe out memory fragments. As soon as he appeared in the dream plane, Li Yu discovered that there were many new types of memory fragments on the ground. The color was colorful black, and it was obviously quite historical. It was the size of a palm and as crystal clear as a pearl. In terms of appearance, it was indeed the best of all the memory fragments in the past. Even the memory fragments I got when I upgraded a Pluto Mecha were slightly inferior. Reaching out to touch it, the memory fragments slowly merged into the body. Buzz! A huge amount of information exploded in the soul. The unprecedented dense information flow continued to expand like an explosion. This information was actually many times more than the information in the previous 50-nanometer microscopic field of view. Fortunately, this is the dream plane, Li Yu's territory. In normal conditions, his brain would be much more uncomfortable. But now, he has been holding on for about 4 or 5 minutes, and he has recovered and started to sort out these complex and dense information flows. The benefits are also obvious. The soul gain obtained by absorbing such a memory fragment is much stronger than usual. Just like that, he felt that his soul's surplus had increased by 0.5 at the minimum. If he absorbed it vigorously every day, coupled with a diminishing marginal utility, it would probably only take a week to pull the previously reduced soul surplus back to the original level. If it continues, it will probably only take 3 or 4 weeks for the soul surplus to exceed 200. This place is really good. It's a pity that only the first time we'll have the most memory fragments of this quality. Li Yu was happy, but also a little regretful. But this is not bad. Even if he is not here in the future, these memory fragments will continue to be refreshed, but the quantity will be less. Overall, the benefits are still very high. These information flows are very complicated. They should be the space-time information flows generated by the collision of space-time nodes. After interpretation, it should be data involving the essence of the world and space-time. It's interesting. I didn't expect to touch the original knowledge of space-time in such a place. Li Yu spent several hours to organize these information flows and complete the interpretation. Originally, he was unable to complete this aspect of interpretation. But with the time and space knowledge he had absorbed from Liming 2 years before, plus his perfect level decryption skills, he was able to complete this step. Although the efficiency was a bit slow, this knowledge was of great benefit to him. For example, the space characteristics he currently mastered can of course directly complete operations such as creating space cracks, dimensional slashes, and transmission channels. But this consumes a lot of energy, and it is not worth the loss to use it in the human body. Instead, it will quickly exhaust his divine reserves and affect conventional combat power. This is also the reason why he rarely uses space-related means at present. But if he masters enough time and space knowledge and skills, he can perform stronger operations with the same output and cover a wider range. One day, if he absorbs and digests enough time and space knowledge, he may not even need to rely on space characteristics. He can create time and space gaps with his physical body alone, and even travel through time and space with his physical body. It may not be impossible. But to reach that step, it will definitely take a long time. In this way, time passed as Li Yu continued to absorb memory fragments, and it came to the 15th hour. Boom, boom, boom. In the distance, the roar of divine mechas could be heard from afar. 2 S-Class Ice God series and 1 S-Class Fire God series set off a flying wave at the far end of the God-suppressing prison, and in the blink of an eye, they crossed thousands of meters and came to the space-time interlayer. On the side, Tanyeozu, sitting in a Fire God series mecha, jumped down from a height of 400 meters. When he was about to hit the ground, Tanyeozu's divinity was shaken and he landed easily. Sorry for the long wait, Li Yi, it's okay. Has Brother Lu's amnesia been cured? We need to wait for that person to arrive. According to the intelligence, Chief Lin has gone to find someone. Li Yu nodded and looked at the 3 divine mechas in front. There was no suitable co-leader mecha for Tanyeozu, and the others were all conventional Ice and Fire series. So it was easier to find a substitute. Of course, the height would definitely not be as good as before. After all, Qin Longquan's original Snow Dragon mecha was originally of the top S-Class height, 473 meters, while the Ice God Sequence Divine mecha he was driving now was only 321 meters, which could only be considered a regular S-Class. On the contrary, Zhao He's Vulcan Sequence mecha could actually find a 410-meter replacement, which was not much different from his previous one. Let's go, Li Yi, we have to stay away, they are going to attack the time-space barrier. Tanyaozu said, pulling Li Yi away from the spot. Li Yi also looked forward to it, wanting to see with his own eyes what the specific situation of this time-space interlayer was. Chapter 415 Enlightenment. The first to attack was the Ice Soul Mech piloted by Qin Longquan. This divine mech, which is just over 300 meters long, is dark blue in color, with a slender body and long arms. The body seems to be built by circles of ice crystals, and light can be refracted through its body to form a light-colored halo, which is very magical. In terms of the beauty of its figure, it can only be considered okay, but in terms of the visual beauty brought by this special material, it is very outstanding. From the overall point of view, this Ice Soul Mech is more like a female mech. No wonder the strongest people did not control it before. I think that if there is no lack of matching S-class mechas, a tough guy like Qin Longquan would not be able to control this style of divine mech. At this moment, the Ice Soul Mech reached out and grabbed, and the divinity in his palm was easily transformed into the Ice God Sequence Divine Will by him, reaching out to the location of the space-time interlayer. Ling. It was as if the crisp sound of ice crystals colliding rang out. First, an ice flower appeared from the location of the space-time interlayer. Then there were 10 grabs, 100 grabs, and in the blink of an eye, a large number of ice flowers condensed out of thin air in the empty space where there was nothing but air. In the layers of nested ice flowers, a lip-shaped outline of time and space was faintly visible. Li Yi activated his microscopic eyes from a distance and carefully examined the structure of the ice crystals, and was amazed in his heart. This ice crystal froze a large number of time and space structures. In other words, in this frozen area, even time may not flow normally. Qin Longquan is worthy of being the only demigod-level strongman in the human world. Even if he is driving an unfamiliar divine mecha, he can still make such amazing moves. The next one to take action was Zhao He's 400-meter-high fire camel mecha. This mecha was one of the S-level divine mechas that Li Yi, Zhang Shengfang and others had seized from the earth ruins. Because it was a heavy mecha, no other powerful person had chosen this divine mecha to drive it before. If their divine mecha had not been lost this time, Zhao He would not have used it. Energy gathered in the mouth of the fire camel mech, and the amazing divine will that burned through everything was also wrapped in it, constantly condensing. At the 4th minute of brewing, the head of the fire camel mech suddenly shook and opened its mouth to spray. Swoosh! The hot flame wrapped in the divine will shot out instantly, accurately hitting the frozen space-time outline. With a pop, the ice crystal layer began to melt and explode. The lip-shaped space-time outline began to distort under the two forces of ice and fire that were enough to affect space-time. It showed an amazing shaking like a mirage. Tanyaozu exclaimed, "The combined power of the dual divine will of ice and fire is really amazing." Li Yi did not speak, but also carefully observed the changes in it. Combined with the large amount of space-time information he had previously brushed in his space-time interlayer, he also gained a lot. However, just 2 attacks were obviously not enough. Their current attack was at most to create a space-time rift. If you want to completely penetrate the boundaries of time and space and reach the dimension where the Enlightenment Mountain is located, you may need to do more than a dozen rounds. Or even more of the same operation. Li Yi has a deeper understanding of this now. As he understands the knowledge of time and space, he gradually understands that the essence of time and space is a higher dimensional substance. This substance is like a straw or rope that is twisted from thin to thick. A strand of fiber in the straw or rope is equivalent to time and space, a world. The point where this strand of fiber is compared with other fibers is the intersection of time and space. Some intersections are closely connected, forming 2 worlds with extremely high similarity. Some intersections are close and distant, and there is a layer of small protruding cilia in the middle, which is the time and space interlayer they are looking for. The Enlightenment Mountain is probably hidden in such a time and space interlayer. And now the stargates that are spread throughout the universe are a huge man-made time and space interlayer that can ignore the distance and directly connect 2 planets separated by dozens or hundreds of light years. If they could penetrate the space-time barrier of the world he was in, since their current location was the intersection of space and time, then in theory, they would be directly connected to the cyclone area outside the Enlightenment Mountain. At this moment, the Fire Camel Mecha and the Ice Soul Mecha took action one after another, first freezing and then burning, just like mining, constantly hitting the barrier deep in the space and time, repeatedly wearing away. Li Yi watched the fragmentation of space and time in front of them with his microscopic eyes, and combined with the large amount of space-time information flow he had previously swiped out, Gradually, as if he had realized something, he closed his eyes and entered a state of self-consciousness. After a while, the Pluto, the King of Heaven, and Gaia's divinity around his body were all activated, flashing the deep divine flames that belonged to the celestial god sequence. These three sequences all have special characteristics. Therefore, with his understanding, the divinity of these three sequences naturally has the highest degree of response. Tanyaozu, who was standing next to him, undoubtedly felt it most clearly. He was secretly surprised. Good fellow, what has Li Yu realized again? No, why again? It's outrageous. He realizes something every other day. Does this kid want to be killed? Compared with him, I am really ashamed to the upper echelons of humanity. Alice, it's a pity that even if I work hard, I can't get results immediately. In addition to being surprised, Tanyaozu's mood became more and more complicated. However, as the divinity around Li Yi's body gradually became stronger, it gradually showed a trend of fusion between divinity, soul and divinity genes. This undoubtedly shocked Tanyaozu. He's going to merge the three elements so soon? No, Li Yi can't merge the three elements so quickly now. With Tanyaozu's understanding of Li Yi at this moment, he naturally saw that Li Yi's goal was not just to complete the accumulation of the three core divinity genes and directly advance to the 9th stage of the heavenly position. It is a more ambitious goal. If the three elements suddenly merged here, the follow-up would inevitably disrupt Li Yi's progress rhythm. Could it be that this kid is in such a good state that he accidentally understood the level of the three elements integration, and inadvertently directly controlled the soul, the divine gene, and the three divine elements, and achieved a high degree of coordination and unity? However, considering his high level of skills in all aspects, this is really possible. He can understand the three elements integration, and the next step can be any time, but definitely not now. Thinking of this, Tanyaozu no longer hesitated and prepared to interrupt Li Yi's three elements integration that was about to begin. Li Yi, as soon as the words came out and before they were finished, Li Yi seemed to sense something and his eyelids twitched slightly. Immediately afterwards, Li Yi's three elements integration trend suddenly stopped. Instead, it was the fusion of the three sequence divinities of Pluto, Uranus, and Gaia. Huh? Tanyaozu's eyes lit up. The fusion of sequence divinities? This is interesting. Chapter 416, Enlightenment. Tanyaozu is looking forward to it. Compared with the three-element integration, the fusion between different sequence divinities is undoubtedly a safer transformation. Sequence fusion requires a sufficient amount of divinity and strong control skills before corresponding changes can be derived. Generally speaking, many strong people directly use the strongest transformation before and after the strongest stage to achieve the integration of multiple divinities. But this is different from the three-element integration, which is irreversible. The integration of multiple divinities is reversible. You can use a single divinity or use multiple divinities to fuse at the same time to produce an effect of 1 + 1 greater than 2. In particular, the three divinities that Li Yi is currently integrating are undoubtedly the ones that humans know from various sources and are very well adapted. The King of Heaven, the King of the Underworld, and the King of the Earth respectively. Although they are not the three kings of the King of Heaven, the King of the Underworld, and the King of the Underworld, Gaia replaces them, which gives them enough space for mutual complementation and mutual assistance. At the same time, the gods here are not gods in the sense of personality, but gods who have all the authority in the corresponding fields after being highly abstracted, metaphysical gods. At this moment, the three kinds of divinity outside Li Yi's body gradually evolved from being distinct from sky blue, dark blue, and azure blue to being the same, presenting a deep and colorful color. Deep and distant. When the three colors completely merged into one, an amazing divine radiation radiated from Li Yi. It was a divine radiation that could rival the S-level divine nucleus. The moment he was radiated by this divinity, there were some different movements in Tanyaozu's body. He only felt that his blood seemed to be boiling. Gulp, gurgle. In this obviously quiet place, he clearly heard the blood gurgling, surging in powerful flow. And, deep in the body, the divine gene was craving for more divine radiation from the outside world. At this moment, Tanyaozu just wanted to get close to Li Yi regardless of everything to receive everything from this divine radiation. But he quickly calmed down. Strange, this is too strange. How can an ordinary person's divinity have its own divinity radiation? It's not a divinity nucleus. How can it have such an attractive divinity radiation? I don't know what sequence this fused divinity belongs to, The divinity sequence I plan does not have the existence of these 3 celestial god sequences. Just in case, I still can't take over. In just a moment, Tanyaozu felt that the gene chain in his body was ready to move, and new divinity genes could be generated at any time due to this divinity radiation. But he knew that the unplanned divinity sequence genes would only interfere with his normal progress, so he stepped back decisively and avoided the range of this divinity radiation. He stared at Li Yu with his eyes, observing the various changes in the details of the divinity radiation around him, and his heart was fluctuating. Moreover, the changes in Li Yu were not over yet. After completing the integration of the 3 divinities, his aura was still changing. This change was very amazing. Outside Li Yu's body, the deep and colorful divinity directly formed a spherical circle with a diameter of 3 meters. Around the spherical circle, time and space seemed to collapse, and the distortion was visible to the naked eye. This scene shocked Tanyaozu again. Divine radiation directly affects time and space? What kind of outrageous ability is this? Can the fusion of pure divinity achieve such an amazing change? Tanyaozu could only keep asking questions that he couldn't even explain in his heart, staring at Li Yi to death, hoping that he would remember all the details of Li Yi's subsequent changes in his mind. He vaguely sensed that he, who witnessed this change, would also get a completely different opportunity, or even a good fortune. But whether he could grasp it or not, it depends on luck, and how long Li Yi's transformation will last. In a blink of an eye, 20 minutes passed. At this moment, Qin Longquan and Zhao He's Ice and Fire combined attack with the Ice Soul and Fire Camel mechas have been completed. The entrance and exit of the space-time mezzanine was created as expected. The entrance and exit is about 100 meters in diameter, with irregular jagged edges, revealing a very irregular space-time rift, indicating that the entrance and exit will not exist for a long time. Once the 2 worlds are slightly turbulent, the entrance and exit will collapse directly. Therefore, although the entrance and exit have been created, it is obviously impossible to enter and exit safely. It must be done as soon as possible, otherwise there will be changes. Fortunately, this entrance and exit is very large, enough to accommodate the vertical entry and exit of the S-class mecha. With the strength of the S-class mecha, even if the entrance and exit suddenly collapses, it will not suffer strong damage. However, when Qin Longquan and Zhao He turned their eyes to Tanyaozu and Li Yi, preparing to call them in to retrieve their respective divine mechas, they quickly noticed the abnormality on Li Yi. Under the detection system, the 2 quickly realized that Li Yi's current state was extremely unusual. Old Tan, what is Li Yi like now? Zhao He asked directly on the public channel. Tanyaozu squeezed the communicator, keeping his eyes fixed on Li Yi, and answered casually, "It is obvious that Li Yi had an epiphany while watching you bombard the space-time interlayer." Epiphany? It was an epiphany? The 2 of them thought at the same time that you were joking. How strange and how desirable this word is. But in the records of human history, the so-called epiphany has only appeared in myths. All the evolution of the evolvers, including fighting skills, is based on real accumulation, which is a natural result of accumulation. An epiphany can suddenly solve many problems and make rapid progress. This phenomenon is absolutely impossible. Because this is determined by the characteristics of the divine evolution system. In this evolution system, there is no so-called epiphany at all. Old Tan, why do you use the word epiphany? Isn't it normal for Li Yi to have an epiphany and then a transformation? After thinking about it, Zhao He spoke first. Tanyaozu's eyes remained unchanged, and he continued to answer, "It's very simple. At first, I thought Li Yi had learned some small secrets from your actions, until I saw with my own eyes that Li Yi had realized the unity of the 3 elements, the fusion of the 3 divinities of the King of Heaven, the King of the Underworld, and Gaia, as well as the subconscious guidance and control of the characteristics of time and space in just 20 minutes. What else can you call this if it's not called enlightenment?" Zhao He was speechless. If what Tanyaozu said was true, it was indeed quite outrageous. But this was Li Yi after all, and he seemed to find it acceptable. Qin Longquan observed the changes in all aspects of Li Yi's surroundings from the perspective of the detection system, and his pupils shrank slightly. At this moment, Tanyaozu continued to say, "Even I have gained a lot from seeing Li Yi's subconscious operation of the time and space structure, and learned a lot of skills. You too. My suggestion now is to use the detection system to record everything at this moment immediately, so as not to regret it later." Chapter 417, Prison Suppression. After being reminded by Tanyaozu, Zhao He also began to notice the mysterious changes around Li Yi's body. Around Li Yi's body, time and space were twisted into a self-contained space-time membrane, which vaguely separated Li Yi from the world. In various parts of the membrane, the strong pressure from the origin of the world was pressing away, but it did not burst Li Yi's small space-time membrane, but continued to grow. Not only that, the space-time membrane around Li Yi's body was actually absorbing the surrounding space-time changes, and transforming the external space-time structure into his initially formed space-time membrane. Not only that, Zhao He saw under the detection system that there were many extremely delicate space-time structures on the space-time membrane that showed colorful and deep colors. These space-time structures were embedded together in an extremely complex formation in the microscopic depths that ordinary people could not see, forming a layer of delicate and solid fine structure. This scene was so mysterious that even Zhao He, who claimed to have gone a long way in the strongest way, had a basic understanding of time and space. But once you try to interpret these mysterious structures, you will still feel dizzy. This is even more shocking. Compared with Tan Yaozu, he has an S-class mecha detection system. The more he sees, the more shocked he is. Speechless, he couldn't help but speak, wanting to confirm whether Tan Yaozu's statement was exaggerated. Are you saying that those strange space-time structures around Li Yi's body are his subconscious actions? Tan Yaozu nodded. That's right. I observed his changes throughout the whole process, and I was definitely not wrong. I can understand you, Lao Zhao. If I hadn't seen these things with my own eyes, I'm afraid I wouldn't dare to believe them. Listening to this solemn tone, Zhao He had to confirm that what Lao Tan said just now was indeed serious. If this level of space-time operation can really be completed subconsciously, it means that Li Yi's control over space-time is at least proficient, or even close to the level of mastery. After all, space-time is the foundation of the universe, and it is naturally very difficult to control it freely. Even if the divine manipulation skills can reach the realm of refining the spirit, endowing the spirit, or even the realm of divine will, it may not be easy to achieve the control of time and space. What they can do now is more of a destruction of the structure of time and space. This is essentially a level that can only be achieved after a deep enough understanding of the origin of the world. Demigod, can you do it? Thinking of this, Zhao He asked Qin Longquan on the public channel, Old Qin, who has been promoted to demigod, can you complete the time and space manipulation of Li Yi? For example, create this kind of time and space barrier. What does Old Qin who has been promoted to demigod mean? Qin Longquan was speechless. He didn't expect Zhao He to still be brooding over it. Isn't it just hiding my strength from you? What's the big deal? However, now is indeed not the time to argue. Li Yi did give him a big surprise. As the thought flashed through his mind, he replied, I can also do this, but it would be difficult to accomplish it unintentionally in the subconscious. Moreover, the internal structure of Li Yi's space-time membrane is very sophisticated. I can't do what he does at the moment. Very sophisticated? Just sophisticated, Zhao He frowned. Lao Qin's statement was too rough. Qin Longquan smiled and said, in simple terms, the space-time barrier that Li Yi is showing can defend against most conceptual characteristic attacks, including space-time characteristic attacks. Not only that, conventional physical attacks can definitely not hurt him at this moment. In other words, if a conventional S-class mecha is just a pure physical attack and does not carry a high-intensity divine or characteristic attack, it basically cannot break through Li Yi's space-time barrier. Hiss. Zhao He was amazed and said, if it is really as you said, then Li Yi's sudden enlightenment trick can be said to be an absolute defense. Tisk-tisk, using the flesh to resist the mecha, this is completely different from using the heavenly trick to break the defense of the divine mecha. Up to now, humans have only seen a suspected quasi-god resurrector Dan Chenli who has the ability to resist the mecha. Ordinary supreme beings, although their flesh is strong and they also have heavenly tricks, it is still difficult to use tricks to resist the direct impact of the divine mecha. While the two were talking, Tan Yaozu's aura also changed slightly, which attracted their attention. Hey, did old Tan realize something? Zhao He asked in surprise. Qin Longquan heard this, observed for a few seconds, and then understood. After all, he mainly cultivates the coordination characteristic, which is also closely related to the time and space characteristics. There are enough references for many operation methods. Moreover, he just observed the whole process with one heart and one mind. I think he has gained some good results now. This is also a double happiness. Not only did Li Yi realize it, but Tan Yaozu also learned some scraps. However, The two of them also have other things to worry about. That is, the time and space channel they just broke through may not last long. If it collapses and produces time and space shock, it may push their divine mecha into the cyclone area, adding variables. Thinking of this, Qin Longquan said, "Old Zhao, Li Yu will probably need some time. In this case, you and I should just split up. You stay here to take notes, and I will go to find our divine mecha." At this point, Zhao He naturally would not refuse. "Okay, I will not talk about the previous accounts for now. I wish you good luck and don't get lost in the cyclone area again." Qin Longquan smiled, immediately ejected the insertion cabin, jumped off the Bingpo mecha, and flew into the space-time channel. Li Yu, with the blessing of the self-consciousness and 2.0 brain super-lifting technique, quickly digested all the space-time memory fragments he had absorbed in the past. He had absorbed a lot of these things before. In particular, since the Pluto Metra was upgraded, the space-time memory fragments that were refreshed were more and richer. But he has not yet formed his own knowledge system. Until this time, after absorbing the memory fragments on the space-time interlayer and supplementing another part of the space-time memory with a high degree of correlation, but a different type, he felt that his understanding of space-time knowledge had reached a bottleneck. A person who knows a lot of small tricks and knowledge, but has not yet formed a bottleneck of the system. Only by breaking through this bottleneck period can he form a real knowledge and skill system that belongs to him alone. At this moment, in the process of watching the space-time interlayer being penetrated, he finally realized and began to organize this knowledge to form a huge knowledge framework. However, because the space-time knowledge is so vast and profound, even if he is in full swing at this moment and has spent a lot of time, he has only initially formed the first skill. This first skill comes from the unity of the three divinities of the King of Heaven, the King of the Underworld, and Gaia. The special divinity formed by the unity of the three divinities is highly similar to the characteristics of space and time, but it is obviously not the same thing. Li Yu judged that this should be a special state after the four characteristics of gravity, space, time, and ice prison are merged into one. Among them, all three have the above four characteristics. However, the King of Heaven's divinity is mainly based on space characteristics, the King of the Underworld's divinity is mainly based on ice prison characteristics, and Gaia is mainly based on gravity characteristics. Time characteristics, all three sequences have, but they are rare. After the unity, some time characteristics are presented. This new divinity is very special and has a high energy density. Li Yu could clearly sense that once this divinity was activated, it would produce unparalleled destructive power. Perhaps it would not be difficult to break the armor of a high-level A-level or even a regular S-level divine mecha. Not only that, this divinity was also very special. It not only had the energy state of divinity, but also had the special effects of characteristics. In other words, the divinity itself had characteristics. Instead of the previous transformation of divinity in the divinity gene, various special effects such as freezing and gravity could be produced. What surprised him most was that this divinity gave him an unusual sense of familiarity. Just like the omnipresent terrifying suppression force in this Henshin prison and even the Wudao divine mountain. Before, he had never been able to determine what the special suppression force in the Wudao divine mountain and this Henshin prison was from. Now, he knew. This was the special divinity after the fusion of multiple divinities. Although it was not the will of God, it had a power that ordinary divinities could not reach. He felt this divinity for a long time and called his newly fused special divinity the Henshin divinity. First, it was because of the high similarity between his divinity and the divinity of Xinshanyu. Second, Zhen refers to the divinity of the King of Heaven and Gaia, and Yu refers to the divinity of Hades. It is simple and direct, not so fancy. Xianyu divinity has stronger space-time control than his space concept characteristics. On this basis, he combined the space-time knowledge that has been initially formed and the changes in the space-time interlayer to create a new skill. He named this move as Henkong membrane. At the same time, a tough space-time membrane will be formed around the space to isolate external attacks. With the help of the changes in the outside world at this moment, although he has not actually tested it, he has his own judgment. This space-time membrane can probably allow him to withstand the physical attacks of most S-class mechas with his body. As for SS-class mechas, this kind of mecha can generally transform divinity into conceptual characteristics. Combined with the huge impact of SS-class mechas fighting with bare hands, he currently has no confidence to directly withstand it. But this is also outrageous. Because his pure defense breaking power at this moment has not yet reached the level of breaking through the defense of a high-level mecha, his defense power has made a huge leap, which can be said to be amazing. After completing the perfection of the vacuum membrane skill, he has not yet escaped from this wonderful state of comprehension. On the contrary, as the state deepens, the brain, under the long-term blessing of the 2.0 brain superlifting technique, seems to have faintly broken through the original limitations and reached a new level of brain power. With the help of this expanded brain power, he gradually sank into the depths of his mind. At this moment, the main consciousness that was previously refined by the technique of emptiness also played a lot of roles in this special state, allowing him to maintain a high degree of freedom of mind even if he dived deep into the subconscious, without being assimilated by the subconscious and becoming spiritually deficient. It was also under the blessing of multiple positive gains that he gradually accelerated the induction and summary of time and space knowledge, and his comprehension became deeper and deeper. What was presented outside was the vacuum membrane that was activated automatically outside the body. Its structure became more and more exquisite and complicated, full of various special tricks he absorbed from the parallel memory fragments. The defensive power of this space suppression membrane is becoming stronger at a speed visible to the naked eye. Even with the filling of a large amount of space-time structures, this small space-time divided by Li gradually presents a completely different atmosphere. It seems that this space-time will be completely cut off by Li and belong to him alone. This change was not noticed by Zhao He or Tan Yaozu. Time passed slowly. In a blink of an eye, 20 minutes passed after Qin Longchuan left. At this moment, the deep and colorful space-time membrane has completely blocked the light and completely covered Li Yi. In front of Tan Yaozu, there is only a completely different colorful spherical object. He woke up from that state of comprehension and felt a little disappointed. It's over. As this space-time membrane can even block light, he can no longer observe any details. He can only see colorful black. However, after such a long period of observation, Tan Yaozu is naturally not without gain. At the very least, he understood some details and methods of manipulating time and space with the characteristics of coordination, and was confident that he could intercept some more powerful conceptual characteristics and achieve a multiplier effect. Although the effect was far inferior to the space-time membrane in front of Li Yi, Tan Yaozu felt that he was still pretty good and was very happy. Old Zhao, can the detection system still record these space-time changes around Li Yi's body? It's not working on my side now. Zhao He shook his head. Although Tan Yaozu was disappointed, it was not unexpected, so it was okay. He sat down immediately and reviewed the situation quietly. At this time, the change occurred. After a series of teeth-grinding creaking sounds, the 3-meter diameter space-time membrane suddenly cracked and a figure jumped out. It was Li Yi. Immediately afterwards, the dark and colorful space-time membrane suddenly shrank and turned into a black gravel the size of a grain of rice in the blink of an eye, which fell lightly into Li Yi's palm. This scene shocked Zhao He and Tan Yaozu. After the space-time membrane is formed, it can actually be shrunk? What kind of method is this? Suddenly, Tan Yaozu seemed to have thought of something and said in surprise, "Fuck, you didn't cut off the space of our world with this trick." Zhao He was also shocked when he said this. Cutting space is nothing, but combined with the fact that Li Yi just shrunk the space-time membrane into a ball, Zhao He couldn't help but feel dry in the mouth. This is a space compression technology that humans have not yet mastered. The divine equipment or items that humans use now that have the function of compressing space are not only rare, but also difficult to crack. Li Yi, your little black particle, could it be that it has stored and compressed a space with a diameter of 3 meters? Li Yi didn't have anything to hide, so he nodded and said, "Yes, what's the extra benefit that I don't know about?" Chapter 418 Tickets. The benefits are naturally countless. Zhao He looked defeated by Li Yi's question. You practice the skill yourself, and you ask me what the benefits are? You just want to show off, right? The simplest one is that you can carry a space with you to store things, and it doesn't take up space. How convenient is that? This is the simplest benefit. What about the others? Li Yi nodded. According to Tan Yaozu's words, there should be other benefits. However, even if it is just for storing things, it is indeed very good. Although it is only 3 meters in diameter now, it can already hold various personal belongings. Moreover, as long as he wants, he can condense the same thing at any time and compress the 3-meter diameter space into the size of a grain of rice. There is no limit to the number. What limits him now is that there is no need to make so many grains of space. Moreover, he is not sure how much change will be brought to this world by cutting and compressing too much of the time and space of this world. Therefore, he still needs to observe the similarities and differences between the skill and the divine technology that can compress space. If it does not have much impact on the world, then he can play some tricks in the future and transform his second time and space skill into an attack skill. Not only that, the 3-meter diameter is not his current limit. According to his estimation, he can at least compress a space of 30 meters in diameter. However, to achieve this step, he needs to exert all his strength, and the consumption of divinity and soul is not low. Moreover, with the improvement of his knowledge and skills of time and space, and the growth of the divinity of the prison, this space can be compressed even more. At this moment, he also wants to listen to Zhao He, the senior and strongest, to see what additional benefits his operation of the grain of space can bring. There are naturally more other benefits, for example, the 3 core technologies of time and space that we humans have not been able to conquer so far, namely stargates, transmission, and compressed space. Now that you have mastered the skill of cutting and compressing space, it should be much faster to crack these technologies in the future. These technologies also limit the activity territory of our human beings, making it impossible for us to spread the glory of human civilization throughout the star field. After all, we seem to occupy the entire silent star field, but in fact, it is still difficult for us humans to reach the range that the ancient Stargate cannot cover, and this will also greatly limit our further liberation of productivity and expansion of civilization strength, Zhao He explained. Liu nodded slightly. This was as it should be. Although everyone could see that the 2-time space skills he had just mastered were related to the birth of the prison-suppressing divine. Without the prison-suppressing divine, it was impossible to easily control time and space. But they also knew that divinity was only the foundation, and knowledge and skills were the key to determining Liu's ability to play these tricks with time and space. With his knowledge and skills, it would undoubtedly be much easier to understand and crack the divine technology of time and space. Zhao He continued, the above are things that are beneficial to the entire civilization. As for you personally, the biggest benefit is that you can take out those SS level or even SSS level time series divine cores from the 3 major time-related relics of time, space, and years. When it reaches SS level, the size of the divine core will shrink. It will no longer be as big and thick as an S level, comparable to a big house. On the contrary, it will become smaller and smaller. In fact, the higher the level, the less noticeable it is. For example, SS level divine cores are usually the size of a millstone, but SSS level divine cores are only the size of a sandbag. When it comes to Super S level divine cores, that is, supreme level divine cores, it is said that they are only the size of a fist. Logically speaking, the higher the level of the divine core, the easier it should be to carry, but the divine cores on the 3 major time relics are exactly the opposite. They cannot be touched by hand and cannot be isolated by divinity. Once touched, they will quickly dissipate and directly collapse. Even conceptual properties and divine will, although they can barely be touched, the consumption will also increase sharply, which is very troublesome. Only time and space properties can be directly wrapped and taken away, and you have this cutting and compression space. So after entering the 3 major relics of time, you can naturally take these divine nuclei away easily. Hearing this, Li's heart moved. The volume of divine nuclei above SS level will shrink? This reminded him of the immortal divine nucleus that he had made interdependent and kept close to his body. According to the previous star map records, there should be tens of thousands of fragments of the immortal nucleus, and the fragments are of different sizes, but the combined volume should be about the size of a sandbag, right? In other words, the strength of the God-man is at the level of quasi-God? Why haven't you seen what Brother Zhao said in the data? This is normal. Some things will not be fully recorded in the data. After all, the various detailed knowledge of the level above the demigod is just our experience summary. We don't have the time to make it into data. Zhao He smiled slightly, and Liu finally had a sigh that he didn't understand. It was not easy. Liu was speechless. It makes sense to think so. Generally speaking, data is directly extracted and summarized by non-combatants or AI through battlefield records. But it is impossible to record everything in the data. Some things can only be passed on by word of mouth. However, he did not expect that the time-type divine nucleus actually has a characteristic that it cannot be easily touched by other objects. But if you think about it carefully, It seems reasonable. If the time-type divine nucleus is really that easy to obtain, then whether it is human or star race, there must be some strong people who have the power to manipulate time. It sounds like my new skill is not bad, Li Yi smiled. More than good, it can even be said that you have already got half of the ticket to the quasi-god. Suddenly, Qin Longquan's voice, accompanied by a violent roar, came from the time-space channel. Ticket? Li Yi turned his head and found that it was the top-level S-class snow dragon mecha that emerged from the time-space channel. There were several thick ropes formed by the divine power behind the snow dragon mech. They extended from behind the snow dragon mech, connecting one divine mech after another, and continuously pulling them out from the opposite side of the space-time channel. They were the 4 divine mechas of Pluto, Fire Dragon, Zulu, and Sea King. Obviously, Qin Longquan lived up to everyone's expectations and found the mechas that everyone was riding. I don't know if it was a coincidence, but when the last Sea King mech was pulled out of the space-time channel by the snow dragon mech with a divine rope, the entrance of the channel suddenly shook and made a huge explosion. The space-time channel collapsed. Boom. The terrifying shock wave brought by the collapse of the space-time channel instantly swept across the entire Henshin prison. This shock wave was not an ordinary physical shock wave, but also carried an extremely amazing space-time shock force, which came swiftly. Li Yi's heart moved slightly. This space-time shock wave was so powerful that it was probably enough to annihilate some A-level divine mechas. He immediately activated this Henkuang membrane to block Tanyeozu beside him. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 419 Discussing Law. A deep and colorful air-suppressing membrane quickly emerged, forming a spherical dome that shielded Li Yi and Tanyeozu. At the same time, an astonishing space-time shock wave swept through, and all the surrounding ground was instantly razed to the ground. Boom. In the blink of an eye, the huge God-suppressing prison, which was originally full of icebergs of all sizes, completely turned into nothingness. Even the ground was plowed down by several meters. The huge mechas that were entangled by the divine ropes of the snow dragon mecha also broke the divine ropes directly due to the space-time shock wave, flying around and hitting the wall, causing another round of earthquakes. Several divine mechas fell together, vibrated, and their armor broke. The movement caused was indeed amazing. Fortunately, these divine mechas are all high-level A-level at least, and their armor defense is very strong. Although a lot of armor was cracked under the space-time shock wave, the main body was not seriously damaged. After a few days, the divine mecha will be repaired naturally. At Li Yi's side, there was only one space-suppressing membrane left, suspended in the air. The soil and rocks underneath had naturally disappeared, and no one knew where they were taken by these space-time shock waves. After removing the space-suppressing membrane, Li Yi looked around, and saw the impact marks left by the space-time shock waves, and his heart was slightly shocked. The shock wave formed by the pure collapse of space-time is indeed much stronger than the conventional explosion shock wave. The God-suppressing prison is not an ordinary place. The strength of the people who can be imprisoned is at least above the level of demigods. Therefore, ordinary attacks cannot damage the inside at all. Tanyeozu was also shocked and said, "Wow. I didn't expect that the destructive power of this unstable space-time channel after collapse is so strong. If it weren't for you, Li Yi, I would be disabled even if I didn't die." He saw it very accurately. Even if he was the strongest, he couldn't withstand such a shock wave with his flesh. At most, he would use the divine shield to offset the greatest damage, and then use his flesh to withstand the remaining impact. "It's too polite to say thank you, Brother Tan," Li Yi said thoughtfully. "However, judging from the collapse of space and time just now, I have underestimated the destructive power of space and time abilities. It seems that there is a lot of potential in the field of space and time." Although his air-suppressing membrane was well matched and defended without damage, it was also consumed. However, he had already memorized the details of the collapse of space and time in his mind. After thinking about it and absorbing some space and time memory fragments, he believed that he could simulate a similar trick. With this trick, he might be able to blow up a high-level A-level or even a stronger S-level mecha with his bare hands. Although the space and time shock wave just now was powerful, It was also inferior to being dispersed and not concentrated. The main reason why it can have such a great killing power is that the space and time shock is already a shock to the underlying structure of the universe. Compared with its pure subtle power, it has more damage beyond physics. If it can be concentrated and exploded accurately, I am afraid the power will be even stronger. That is more than promising. It is simply the ability that all the ancient strongmen and alien strongmen dream of. Qin Longquan's voice came from the Snow Dragon Mecha. After all, he was a demigod driving a top-level S-class mecha. Although the space-time shockwave just now was strong, it was not a concentrated attack, so he just opened the divine shield to resist it. As a demigod, the divine will that others need to refine for a long time can be used at will in his hands. As he said, he ejected the insertion cabin and jumped down. A figure suddenly flew over. Bang! The ground shook slightly. Qin Longquan stepped lightly and landed accurately in front of Li Yi Tan Yaozu. Li Yi, you may have to be more careful in the future. It is best not to use your space-time ability casually in front of the enemy. If you want to use it, you must ensure that the kill and their battlefield recording equipment will not be transmitted back. Otherwise, your situation will be better than Yan, but it will probably not be much better. Li Yi was stunned. Yan? The most powerful person who majored in soul characteristics? Captain Qin, my ability seems to be just a variant of the spatial characteristic, isn't it? After all, there are some strong people who master spatial characteristics among us humans, right? Qin Longquan shook his head. It's different. Yours has evolved from the spatial type to the time-space type. In terms of quality, it is undoubtedly a higher-level divine characteristic, and this higher level is a level that is difficult to surpass among many spatial characteristics. As far as I know, the aliens are most eager for, or most hope to get, and have this ability in their hands. With this ability, you not only have a great hope of breaking through the 3 major time-related ruins within our silent star domain. Even the aliens should have some holy relics that need abilities like yours. For example, Lao Lin, his cosmic light characteristic is also this kind of ability. If he was not good at using the cosmic light characteristic to escape, even the top demigods on the alien side could not catch him, otherwise his situation would be much more difficult. In the future, unless you have the cosmic light ability like Lao Lin one day, you should try to show it less in front of foreign enemies. Of course, if you are absolutely sure, then go for it boldly. Li Yi understood, and it seemed that he had realized something extraordinary. Thank you, Qin Bangzhang, for reminding me, but I will be careful. However, I am a little curious about what Qin Bangzhang said just now. The so-called mastery of space-time abilities means mastering half of the ticket to quasi-god. How can this be said? Qin Longquan said, after I was promoted to demigod, I have gained some different insights. Combined with the information I obtained before, I have basically confirmed the way of cultivation before becoming a quasi-god. This is a rare opportunity, so I will tell you by the way. I believe that after you, Li Yi, finish listening, you will know why I said that you have already got half of the ticket to become a quasi-god. Hearing this, not only Li Yi and Tan Yaozu here, but also Zhao Hui suddenly ejected the insertion cabin and rushed over to listen to Qin Longquan's statement. Obviously, as the most evolved strong man in the world, how to cultivate demigods and those after demigods is indeed a problem. Many people still have only a vague understanding and are groping forward. Although the information of the ancient armored man can be used as a reference, he is not human after all. Qin Longquan here is undoubtedly the first-hand real understanding. Organizing the words, Qin Longquan said, let me ask you a question first. It is said that the strongest is the pinnacle of non-humans, and demigods are the beginning of the realm of gods. So, what is the realm of gods? Zhao He pondered and said, God's will is a higher dimensional energy that can touch the origin of the world. And the beginning of the realm of gods is the ability to instantly refine a large amount of God's will. Chapter 420 Shuttle. Qin Longquan nodded slightly. Yes, this is one of them, but have you ever thought about what the essence of this world is? Or, in other words, what are all the divine sequences approaching? Everyone heard Qin Longquan say this and understood what he meant. Old Qin, do you mean that the time-space divine characteristics are close to the essence of the world? Zhao He asked. That's right, Qin Longquan nodded and said, in essence, our universe is an enlarged version of the space-time layer. Everything is just a part of space-time, including matter, change, movement, everything, and even fate. They are all part of space-time. For example, the Xianshu ruins that you, Li Yi, have explored before. the internal space-time is compressed, and the rate of material change is proportionally reduced. In essence, it is also a space-time technology. Through this technology, the internal ecology can be controlled. Everything can be proved by the theory of space-time to prove everything in the world. Only by truly mastering the power of space-time can one truly break free from the limitations of space-time, transcend immortality, and prove the true God. And the biggest difference between demigods and quasi-gods is whether they can finally control the changes in space-time. I can't quantify this indicator for the time being, but it can be seen that the space-time abilities that you, Li, currently possess are much more refined than me, and are very close to the quasi-god realm in my judgment. Although I have just advanced to demigod, I have a clear enough understanding of this, because at this moment, I can clearly feel the implicit space-time load brought to me by our current universe. It is precisely these space-time loads that allow me to judge that once my space-time control ability reaches a certain limit, I can break through to become a quasi-god. Several people were a little surprised, although everyone knows the importance of space-time abilities. But to say that this is the only way to prove the true God, isn't it too absolute? Tanyeozu pondered, but I heard that in the first and second eras, there were supremes who were good at other abilities, right? For example, the Starlight Supreme and the Golden Glory Supreme, their main characteristics were not time and space, right? They still had very strong strength, even dominating an entire era. Qin Longchuan shook his head and said, I'm not sure about the previous eras, but in this era, I can tell you clearly that once you are promoted to demigod or above, you can see the time and space loads from these multiple oppressions. If you want to continue to be promoted, you must surpass these uncontrolled loads. Other characteristics may be possible, but it is undoubtedly a step too far in a wrong direction. Qin Longchuan's words triggered everyone's deep thinking. Could it be that this is a special change that only exists in their era? Or is it that other sequences were originally possible, but were blocked by the strong people in front? Zhao He said, it seems that there is a reason why there are so few demigods in our time. Whether it is us or the aliens, the number of demigods is less than the number recorded in the data. I used to think that this might be because of the insufficient inheritance of divine technology, but now I think it may also be due to the space-time load. Li Yu asked curiously, if the only way left is to major in space-time abilities, then wouldn't your previous accumulation, Captain Qin, be useless? No, after all, my own physique is more inclined to the Ice God sequence, Qin Longchuan explained, at least in the initial stage, until the top of the strongest. The divinity of the Ice God sequence that I majored in has brought me great help, and after being promoted to demigod, due to the enhancement of the essence of the soul, I naturally increased my perception of time and space, which can help my practice in the field of time and space. At the same time, since the Ice God's divine will can be greatly refined, I can also use the Ice God sequence divine will to achieve the effect of space-time abilities in a roundabout way. Until I have the ability to break through this layer of space-time load and reach the stage of quasi-god, Li Yu understood. In other words, even at the stage of demigod, one can still use the means he has mastered before, and use them to touch time and space, and increase his own power. It's just that people who don't have time and space abilities themselves need more sophisticated and complex time and space abilities to be promoted to quasi-gods. It's okay to use other means to achieve it, but it's not as good as the time and space abilities that one has mastered. Just like Zhao He's Vulcan sequence divine will, it can also burn space and achieve an effect similar to space characteristics, but it is ultimately separated by a layer of abilities that one already possesses. He remembered the various time and space control methods that Li Ming Tu, Yi had used at that time. In the memory picture that opened, it seemed that the guy didn't master the time and space divinity, but the dust characteristics similar to Chen Kai Ongzi. But in the later scenes, he mastered a lot of time and space skills. It can be seen that even the strong men of the second era only mastered the time and space abilities after reaching a certain stage. Thinking of this, Li Yu wondered, if a demigod were to control an SS-class mecha, wouldn't it be possible to penetrate time and space and travel long distances? Qin Longchuan nodded and said, almost the same. Besides, Lao Lin uses the characteristics of the cosmic light to control the Xianzhao mecha. Under extreme conditions, he can already cross a range of 10 light-years in 1 minute. 10 light-years in 1 minute? Hiss. Li Yu and the other two looked at each other and were all a little shocked. This speed of movement was too terrifying. After all, a conventional S-class divine mecha, with extreme acceleration in a space environment, would take several hours to accelerate to 0.5 light speed, right? Chief Qin, are you wrong? It actually takes 1 minute to cross a distance of 1 light second, Tanyaozu couldn't help asking. This number was really outrageous. No one believed it. If one could really reach this terrifying speed of movement, wouldn't it be possible to travel freely in the alien star field? Qin Longchuan smiled and said, it must be true. Otherwise, how do you think we humans can get such secret information and intelligence from the aliens? Isn't it because of Lao Lin's unique skill? But this is too incredible. Does the universe light godhood really have such a terrifying ability? Tanyaozu frowned and asked. Qin Longchuan looked at Li Yi. Li Yi, your current godhood also has similar time and space characteristics. What do you think? Is this possible? This question really stumped Li Yi. From what Lao Qin meant, his own godhood also has the opportunity to achieve similar operations. But how to do it? After thinking for a while, Li Yi's heart moved slightly, and he said, what Qin Bang meant is that the cosmic light characteristics can seamlessly cut into the space-time interlayer where each stargate is located. Take a shortcut directly, like a small stargate. Qin Longchuan smiled slightly. Yes, this is another secret of the space-time characteristic ability, and it is also the core reason why aliens are so afraid of space-time characteristic abilities. Anyone who can be cut into the hinterland by this ability will panic. After all, no one is always driving a divine mecha. Zhao He and Tanyaozu had to believe it now. I didn't expect Lin Jianlong's ability to be so outrageous. Then Li Yi will be so happy now, and he can go anywhere he wants in the future, Tanyaozu said enviously. Qin Longchuan smiled and said, Li Yi has hope, but the total amount of divinity is still a lot short, and his current ability is mainly manifested in compressing space and creating space-time barriers. I just don't know when he can practice super large-scale crossing skills like Lao Lin. Chapter 421 Rest. With the recovery of the divine mecha, the things that everyone had to deal with in the near future were basically gone. Guotao Mountain should still be able to enter by opening up the space-time interlayer, but considering the rejection of divine mechas by the cyclone area, the Supreme Poing's clone was rampant in it, and everyone thought again and did not enter again. Simply let Hengsuer challenge Guotao Mountain for a while. If Hengsuer was unlucky and was eroded by other clones of Supreme Poing, the situation would be much simpler. These two great enemies naturally cannot be left alone. It's just that because everyone's current strength is insufficient and they can't defeat the semi-god level clone of Supreme Poing, they can only put this entrance here for the time being and deal with it later. After this, there is the problem of Lu Yansheng and the other two ancient humans' amnesia, which can only be solved by waiting for the return of Yan. Except for Tanyaozu, who needs to meet Feng Hai, who is executing the drifting plan, as soon as possible. Everyone else has to go back to recuperate for the time being. Li Yi also has a rare free time to exercise alone. In the past few days, he used his authority to apply for a match for Li Lulu with a divine mecha of the Destiny God sequence. The result was amazing. All the Destiny God sequence mechas in the Lunar Mecha warehouse could be matched successfully and activated. However, due to insufficient physical fitness, those divine mechas above level C could not be started after being activated, which was normal. It seems that although Li Lulu has amazing talent, she also follows common sense. In the end, she chose the D-level wire-pulling mecha as the current main mecha and joined the Lunar Fortress Divine Mecha Standing Team for Mecha Master Training. Another piece of news is that Chen Kai-Ongzi's Divine Main Ship Cruise qualification has been obtained. Since Li Yi's authority has now reached the top level of the Xingyu Federation, Chen Kai-Ongzi's application to serve as the captain and deputy captain of a new main ship with Li Yi is not difficult at all. Zhao He, who is responsible for approving this matter, also made a special call to Li Yi to confirm Li Yi's opinion. When Li Yi mentioned that he had not yet become a ship, Zhao He was stunned for a long time. After all, during the time in Guotao Mountain, Li Yi absorbed lightning to maintain his vitality, and everyone knew about it after a discussion. You are amazing, you can actually comprehend the skill of absorbing free energy before completing the ship transformation. It's just a fluke, mainly because I just happened to gain a little in those few days. You are more than just gaining a little, you have created a whole new skill system, Zhao He said with emotion. Is this thing extended from your body forging method? I plan to conduct a batch of experiments on Earth and select a group of non-mech division army members with low divine mecha distribution rate but fighting will to major in your body forging method. What do you think? Sure, I also want to see how ordinary people practice the body forging method. However, who is more suitable to do this initial forging? Li Yu naturally supported this experiment. After all, the more experimental data, the better, which is also helpful for him to improve his body forging method. However, the biggest problem with the body forging method at present also lies with him. At present, apart from him, there is no one among humans who can comprehend the subtle level of fighting skills. Therefore, if he wants to achieve a similar subtle forging effect, he is the only one who can do it for the time being. Don't worry, Duanmu has already rushed to complete this part of the equipment, and some of it can be put into use. Although the effect is far less than your own forging, it is enough for preliminary experiments. After we conquer the Star Clan and take down the Nana ruins, we can optimize this part of the forging equipment, Zhao He explained. Li Yu understood. It seems that while they were trapped in the Enlightenment Mountain, the others were also advancing the plan in an orderly manner. Okay, then you can handle this aspect. I will check the experimental data regularly and contact you if there are any problems. With his current status, Li Yu's chat with Zhao He and other federal high-level officials has become much more casual. After a simple communication, Li Yu also confirmed his next itinerary after conquering the Star Clan. That is to build a cruise main ship with Chen Kai-ongzi to ensure that the situation on the border is stabilized after conquering the scorching star field. As for the recruitment and selection of personnel, Li Yu has delegated the power to Chen Kai-ongzi. He needs to hurry up and accumulate strength to cope with the next strategy war. He has also made a summary in the past few days, taking stock of the various skills, tricks, treasures, and future improvement points he has mastered. In terms of the soul, the main method before was to purify redundant memories and improve the efficiency of the soul-absorbing memory fragments through the vacuum purification method. This path has not changed. However, after starting to learn the Seed of the Void technique, he has added a secret method to cleanse the main consciousness. The combination of the two is also good for the improvement of soul strength. The basic goal of the past few days is to speed up the absorption of memory fragments in the space-time interlayer and pull the soul balance back to around 150 as soon as possible. Secondly, it is to absorb and organize more space-time knowledge. Since Qin Longchuan explained the importance of space-time abilities, he has also paid attention to it. I don't know if it's an illusion. Since he mastered the divinity of the prison and developed the two skills of the air suppression membrane and compressed space, he feels that his brain power has been growing in the past 2 days. This growth rate is faster than the growth of the 2.0 brain superlifting technique, which is outrageous. Could it be that after I mastered the space-time ability, the space-time load of the universe on me was weakened? So my brain power showed a trend of skyrocketing. Li Yu couldn't figure out the reason. Although his current space-time control ability was stronger than that of the demigod-level Qin Longchuan, in terms of perception, he didn't have the blessing of the demigod-level transformation, and he couldn't feel anything. He couldn't figure it out, so he didn't think about it for the time being, and quietly enjoyed the process of skyrocketing. In terms of divine genes, there are no obstacles to the three-element integration at present. As long as we can gather the target 12 cores of divine genes one day, we can directly integrate the three elements into one and ascend to the heavenly position. Li Yu is looking forward to what kind of transformation that day will bring to him. In terms of the physical body, the bodybuilding methods that have been developed are the Xiangang method based on Chen Kai-ongzi's special physique, the Neptune transformation method based on Lu Yunshen, the Zilu bodybuilding method based on Tan Yaozu, and the Liduan method based on Tan and He. There are 4 versions in total. At present, the physical gain brought by the Thunder Forging method is the greatest, and he has already trained half of the Thunder God body. The Thunder God body is very strong, allowing Li Yu to move at near light speed in an instant. If it is fully trained, he may be able to turn into lightning at any time and move around at will. And later combined with time and space abilities, he may be able to develop short-distance super light speed displacement skills, giving him unparalleled combat mobility. Needless to say, fighting skills have always been his strong point. Looking back carefully, I didn't expect that I have become so strong. Li Yu took stock in his mind and felt a little emotional. I didn't expect that it has only been a month since the end of the Star Clan War, and I have become so much stronger. However, the characteristic combination skills and the total amount of divinity are still a little weak at present. Also, in terms of body forging methods, there should be room for development after my fighting skills reach the realm of divine intention. There is no way to have the total amount of divinity for the time being. I can only grind. The war is coming. Next, I will start with the subtle forging of the divine will level, and try to optimize the body forging method to take my physical body to a higher level. Chapter 422 Breaking the Limit. Half a month later. Inside the moon, in a wide place. I saw that the Wushan labyrinth was placed on a huge training ground, accommodating a group of strong men above the high stage of the heavenly rank to train here. After all, we have obtained the Wushan labyrinth, so we naturally have to give full play to its value. Apart from anything else, just this self-circulating, gravity and divine suppression environment that does not require any power consumption is a natural and excellent training ground. At this moment, in this 200 times gravity environment, Li Yi's figure is moving quickly in one of the squares. Punching, whip kicks, changing line kicks, using the skills of Zhen, Guan, and Po in various common physical skills, playing out after images that are almost invisible to the naked eye. Swish. The speed of this pure physical body is obviously faster. There are other strong men in the square. They looked at Li Yi's movements, and they couldn't help but reveal a bit of horror in their eyes. It's too fast. Li Yi's physical strengthening speed is simply different every day. There are many masters participating in this short-term training. Like Chen Yanzhang, the top 10 of the heavenly rank who has recovered his physical condition. Or Tu Kuogai, a Xianwei master who squeezed into the Xianwei top 10 because of the top 3 advancement to the strongest, and the strongest who have not yet arrived, such as the brothers Ma Yu and Ma Zhao, Xiao Pengchuan and others, also came here. The purpose is naturally to conduct preparatory training for the bodybuilding method in the last period before the war. These people have been trained by Li Yi in the past half month, and their bodies have been strengthened to a certain extent. Li Yi naturally gained a lot from the details of the changes of these human strongmen, and continued to use them to optimize his bodybuilding method. Unfortunately, among the current batch of Xianwei top 10, there is no one who can break through to the strongest, so that Li Yi can get a new reference for transformation and summarize a new version of the bodybuilding method. It is no wonder that Lu Yansheng and He Guangzi are the strongest among the Xianwei, so it is not surprising that they can be promoted smoothly. Tan Yaozu is a little inferior, but it is also because of the overdraft of vitality that the promotion is slightly bumpy. As for the other Xianwei top 10, although their strength is not bad, they are still a little short of the strongest. Even with the training that Li Yi had taken the time to do in the past half month, he was only closer to the strongest. It is estimated that if he wants to break through the strongest, he will have to accumulate for a while. On the contrary, Xiao Pingchuan, who is slightly younger among the strongest, has been Lin Jianlong's deputy for less than 50 years and has a relatively shallow experience, but after receiving Li Yi's training, he has made amazing progress. Xiao Pingchuan's major is the gravitational god sequence heavy star Mecha. After training, his body has increased rapidly, as if he has experienced half of the strongest transformation. The strength of his body has increased directly to the point where he can run out of residual images under the 200 times gravity. Li Yi estimated that after this round of transformation, Xiao Pingchuan, who has not been promoted to the strongest for more than 20 years, should now have the same physical strength as Zhao He, a senior strongest. In other words, it is equivalent to the physical strength of half a stronger nucleus. These details of the transformation allowed Li Yi to deduce the gravity strengthening method. Although the degree of completion is not enough, it can also allow Li Yi to strengthen his body again. In addition to the currently researched method of body forging, his physical progress is indeed good. In terms of pure physical strength, he had fought with Zhao He and had already surpassed Zhao He by a small margin, which almost made Zhao He's eyes pop out. After being suppressed by Li Yi with pure strength several times, he had to admit that Li Yi's physical body had really surpassed him. This made Lao Zhao depressed and he lamented that he was getting old several times. His old friend of many years suddenly became a demigod, and Xiao Pingchuan, who was originally not as strong as himself, suddenly caught up. Now even Li Yi can suppress him in the physical body. It's a pity that Li Yi's physical forging method is still a little bit worse than Zhao He, and the effect is not high for him. After all, Li Yi's strength is only slightly better than Zhao He. It is also very difficult for the pure physical forging method to exceed this upper limit. In addition to the physical body, other aspects have also made progress in the past half month. The space-time memory is still being absorbed, and no new skills have been sorted out and developed yet. After leaving the state similar to enlightenment, the learning speed of space-time memory was still much slower. However, It was not known whether it was the influence of the continuous absorption of space-time memory during this period, or whether he had mastered the space-time ability, thus exempting part of Qin Longquan's so-called space-time load at a level he did not know. His brain power was constantly growing. During this period, his brain power was like a wild horse that had broken free from its reins, growing wantonly, which once made Li Yi afraid that something was wrong with him. He relaxed a little until he repeatedly checked that there was nothing wrong and there was no sign of being eroded or possessed, but this growth lasted for more than half a month, and he still did not stop this madness. Until this day. Li Yi, who was constantly jumping and exercising in a gravity environment, suddenly realized that his brain power seemed to have broken some shackles, and he stopped and stood still. The brain power, which was already strong enough, seemed to have broken something at this moment. He seemed to hear a hum sound coming from nowhere. Immediately afterwards, under subtle perception, he found that his cerebral cortex and cells everywhere suddenly became active. The original brain cells were also very active, but now, they are obviously better than before, as if something was ignited, fierce but continuous, very amazing. At this moment, Li Yi only felt that the computing power of his brain increased by more than 10 times, and countless inspirations burst out from the depths of his mind, as if shining with amazing brilliance. Some problems that were originally unsolvable, some difficult and complicated diseases, were also integrated and quickly solved. In just a moment, some of the more difficult time and space skills that he had originally envisioned were designed in his mind at once. You know, this is not the ordinary skill that was used before. It is a time and space skill involving the origin of the world. This kind of skill requires a lot of time for demigods to develop. Could it be that after the long-term strengthening of the brain superlifting technique, coupled with a recent enhancement, the brain has also ushered in its own transformation? My current brain power seems to have broken through the current known limit of human brain power, right? Li Yi was pleasantly surprised. Unexpectedly, this wave of brain transformation has such a great effect. He originally estimated that his new time and space skills, even with the assistance of various memory fragments, would take several months to develop. I didn't expect it now, and I had it all figured out in my mind all of a sudden. Since my brain power has skyrocketed, let's try my reaction speed first to see what level I can reach now. Thinking of this, he looked at Ma Zhao and Ma Yu who were training on the side, and said with a smile, "To my brothers, I have a test. I wonder which of you is free and can help me with a little favor." Ma Zhao saw Li Yi's expression and immediately shook his head like a rattle, saying, "Forget it. I saw how distraught Lao Zhao looked after you took the test 2 days ago. You'd better not show off in front of us old guys. It's uncomfortable." Chapter 423 10 nanometers. "Don't, Brother Ma." Li Yi was about to persuade him again. Now there were fewer and fewer people who could practice and test him. "Don't say anything. We two brothers can't bear your blow," Ma Zhao said with a smile. "It can be seen that you must have made another breakthrough, but in order to prevent us old guys from breaking our Dao hearts, you should practice by yourself. Before the war, it's best not to let us know your strength." "Li Yi, not really. Isn't it just that I have been pulling people to test and practice from time to time in the past half month? Why are you so scared like a tiger?" On the other side, Chen Yanzhang laughed and said, "Li Yi, you should test yourself alone. I am in good condition today. I feel that the extremely mysterious opportunity is coming soon. You forge it for me. Maybe I will also break through to the strongest." The opportunity to break through to the strongest was found? Li Yi's eyes lit up. This person is also an old acquaintance. He knew him very early. Before in the ruins of the earth, they had cooperated to jointly pursue the traces of Dan Chenli, the resurrector of the Second Era. Chen Yanzhang is also a senior master of the heavenly rank, and previously ranked 9th among the top 10 of the heavenly rank. Previously, during the Star Clan War, he followed Lin Jianlong to launch a surprise attack, and in exchange for injuries, he single-handedly blocked the divine energy cannons fired by many masters of the Star Clan. Now that his injuries have recovered, his progress is quite obvious, and his strength has surpassed that of others, and he is now ranked 4th in the heavenly rank. He majored in the cold Chu divine nature of the Ice God sequence, which happens to be the type of body forging that Li Yi has not yet mastered. If he can get the details of the transformation of the Ice God sequence from Chen Yanzhang, I believe that it should be a boost to his physical growth. By the way, although the Sea King transfiguration method he mastered before is quite similar to the Ice God sequence ability, it is essentially the Celestial God sequence. It would be great if we can get the Ice God body from here. The advantage of the Thunder God body is that it is fast and immune to most energy attacks, and according to the records, the advantage of the Ice God body is that it recovers quickly and can be immune to illusion and mental attacks when activated. Moreover, the Ice God body has a high sealing power against the enemy when fighting, which is suitable for facing those opponents with tricky positions. It's not bad to have both. Thinking of this, he immediately agreed and prepared to help Chen Yanzhang forge his body. As for the test of brain power, it can also be tested when forging the body. Later, you just need to try your best to activate the subtle perception and see which level of subtle level your current brain power limit can handle, and you can basically determine which category your brain power is in. When everyone heard that Chen Yanzhang had touched that opportunity for breakthrough, they were all surprised and gathered together. Originally, Li Yi's reputation had been damaged in the past 2 days. Except for forging, others tried not to get close to Li Yi as much as possible, so as not to be hit by his amazing progress. But now it is different. After all, it is a breakthrough, not an ordinary thing. Therefore, everyone who was not at a critical moment in training jumped over and landed outside the training ground, watching in groups of 2 or 3. As Chen Yanzhang's good brother, Tu Kuogai, he was shocked when he heard that Chen Yanzhang was about to break through, as if struck by lightning. At this moment, he stood in front of the crowd and shouted, "Old Chen! Chen Yanzhang! You old thing can't really break through, right? Don't talk big and only fart out." But Chen Yanzhang was not angry. He turned his head to look at Tu Kuogai and said with a smile, "Old Tu, I know you are envious and jealous. I understand your feelings, but the fact is that I have already found the opportunity to break through, and I just need to make a final move. Just watch carefully." Everyone couldn't help but get excited when they heard Chen Yanzhang so confident. If Chen Yanzhang can break through this time, there will be 4 people who have broken through to the strongest in the near future. And this is just because Li Yi, the genius, has developed a new bodybuilding method. Li Yi, when forging old Chen, beat him to death for the brothers. This old guy is too pretentious. Amidst the roar, Li Yi began to adjust his breathing and activated the Thunder God's will. This time, he will use the method of subtlety of the will throughout the process to forge the 4 body forging methods on Chen Yanzhang one by one, helping Chen Yanzhang to achieve the greatest breakthrough effect. At the same time, he will also try to pull the subtle power to 30 nanometers, 20 nanometers, or even 10 nanometers as much as possible. Boom! A large amount of Thunder God's will was extracted by him, forming a series of amazing purple-blue electric lights, circling around his body. The onlookers suddenly felt their skin and hair stand up. In the heart, it seemed to resonate with a strange force, producing vibrations that were completely inconsistent with its own rhythm. Everyone's face changed. What a strong will! Not only is the amount large, but the strength is probably also at the strongest level. Just the existence of the surrounding area can make people in the distance feel this terrifying power. Not only that, Li Yi also used a lot of divine will to gather on the nano-sensor next to his eyes. Zizzy. The nano-vision continued to deepen, from the 50 nanometer accuracy maintained before, and continued to explore. In his mind, he was also processing various types of information quickly to confirm whether his brain power could withstand the current surge in information. After a while, he reached 30 nanometer accuracy, jumping 2 levels in one breath. It seems that it has not reached the limit yet. I can reach a deeper nanometer accuracy. A minute later, Li Yi slowly opened his eyes, and the divine light formed a ring of light around his eyes, which was very amazing. This is a sign that his subtle perception has reached a certain limit and has oppressed light. This time, he reached an amazing 10 nanometer accuracy. At this level of accuracy, basically most of the gene sequence information can be directly seen and quickly processed. And this also means that his subtle strength can also reach this level. The ideal trick of destroying most of the enemy's genes with one punch can now be realized. Chen Yanzhang looked at the changed Li Yi and was speechless. "You have stolen all the limelight. Come on, Li Yi." Li Yi nodded and started to punch. He started with the Xiangang method and hit the Zhuangji acupoint on Chen Yanzhang's chest. Bang! The power of the Thunder Gods will suddenly gathered and hit every cell in Chen Yanzhang's acupoints and the gene chain in every cell with a precision of 10 nanometers. Chen Yanzhang's expression was shocked and his body was numb. At the same time, he also felt a surge of power rushing out of the Zhuangji acupoint. How come the effect of this forging is so much stronger? Don't be distracted. "Brother Chen," Li Yu shouted softly and continued to punch Chen Yanzhang's Xia to acupoint. In a blink of an eye, he landed a heavy punch with a precision of 10 nanometers on Chen Yanzhang's Xiangang 36 acupoints like lightning. In just a moment, Chen Yanzhang's aura that was about to transform into a powerful person suddenly rose up, shocking everyone. Tu Kuogai was even more shocked. Why is it so fast? Chapter 424, Against the Cold. Chen Yanzhang's transformation was so fast that it exceeded everyone's expectations. It was only a few minutes, right? Li Yu's previous methods would take an hour or so to help a top-level heavenly rank advance, right? Everyone immediately realized that Li Yu's bodybuilding methods must have improved again. Why is this kid different every day? Ma Zhao and Ma Yu looked at each other and were still shocked. They had been on guard, but they didn't expect that Chen Yanzhang's transformation would allow Li Yu to act so arrogantly. Alice, although I'm helpless, I have to admit that Li Yu is indeed running wildly on a brand new road, Ma Zhao sighed. Yes, it is conceivable that Li Yu will very likely open up a completely different path from the Godhead next, Ma Yu said enviously. We can also be regarded as witnessing history. Maybe future generations will record the period of Li Yu's rise and say that he is the founder of a new era, and we are the remnants of the old era, a group of old-fashioned people, and the last stubborn people in the transition period. Everyone listened to the discussion of these two senior strongest people, and similar thoughts arose in their hearts. Yes, maybe jumping out of the current time and space, Li Yu has indeed done something beyond a divine evolution system, and gradually demonstrated a crushing progress speed. Not only that, everyone found that Li Yu's actions have not stopped. When Chen Yanzhang entered the transformation state, Li Yu was still continuing to output, adding the Sea King transformation method, the Koloa transformation method, and the Thunder forging method. When switching to the Sea King transformation method, he mainly used the prison Godhood and forged it in detail. When switching to the Koloa and Thunder forging methods, he still maintained the Thunder God's will. After all this, Chen Yanzhang's transformation rhythm was obviously much faster. More fierce. The amazing freezing breath was transmitted from Chen Yanzhang's mouth and nose. Around the air, there were already bursts of frost condensed on the ground of the training ground, white as light snow. Everyone suddenly felt a chill that penetrated their bodies, and shivered at the same time. On the platform, white fog was everywhere in an instant. The temperature dropped to more than 100 degrees below zero. Fortunately, the worst of the people present were at the high level of the heavenly rank, and their bodies were strong. By mobilizing the divine isolation, the cold air was pushed away. However, everyone could see that if Chen Yanzhang used a little more force and released the strongest characteristics of the transformation, the divine shields of the people would not be so easy to isolate. Old Chen's physical transformation seems to be much stronger than the regular strongest transformation. Tu Kuogai had seen several strongest transformations, and he was secretly shocked when he saw it. Although Chen Yanzhang's strength is strong, he is definitely not the top among the heavenly rank. He wants to surpass his predecessors in one transformation, which means that Li Yu still plays a greater role in this. In a blink of an eye, half an hour passed, and Chen Yanzhang's transformation was still going on, and Li Yu had stopped his action and carefully observed the changes in Chen Yanzhang's body. This time, due to the surge in brain power, he directly activated the subtle perception of the nanosensor to the level of 0.1 nanometers. Because he had stopped, he didn't need to observe quickly, he just needed to record. Therefore, his subtle perception in the attack state is 10 nanometers, while in the recording state, it can maintain 0.1 nanometers. In his mind, a completely different information picture soon came. With the information accuracy of 0.1 in nanometers, he can already see some relatively low-level structures of the gene chain. That is, before, he could only see the external structure of the gene chain, how they fit together, and how the information transmitted in the middle is expressed. He had accumulated a lot of experience in deciphering these genetic information, and he could directly identify what most of the genetic information meant. This time, he saw the coupling details deep in the gene chain and what substances it was made of. Although he still couldn't see all the atoms clearly, it was much better than before, at least the large atoms could be seen clearly. The difference between the two levels is roughly that understanding the gene chain can directly defeat a creature and exterminate those strong people with strong recovery ability at the genetic level. At this moment, understanding a lot of atomic level information can cross levels to destroy those defenses that were originally unbreakable. For example, the upper limit of his physical body's defense breaking ability was roughly able to break the armor of a mid-level A-level mecha. Now, the upper limit of his defense breaking power should be able to be raised to a higher level, breaking through the high-end A-level armor. Of course, this is also based on the fact that he already knows the details of the A-level armor materials. When he can see deeper levels in the future, it may not be impossible to directly pinch out a new intelligent life with his bare hands. His way of communicating with the gods in his flesh has undoubtedly taken a solid step forward with the improvement of his brain power. Interesting, while observing, Li Yu quickly constructed a new bodybuilding technique in his mind, and he gained a lot for a while. After a few minutes, Chen Yanxiang's transformation gradually ended. Exhale, inhale. He opened his mouth and inhaled, instantly sucking a large amount of frozen air back into his body. Seeing this, Li Yu was moved and asked, "Brother Chen's cold dragon Guotao seems to have added some new conceptual characteristics." Chen Yanxiang's eyes lit up and he smiled. "Good eyesight, I just reversed the characteristics of freezing, and it is quite similar to Lao Tan's coordination characteristics. I named it reverse cold." Li Yu praised, "Not bad, Brother Chen's progress is really good. How about we fight and practice?" Chen Yanxiang's originally happy expression suddenly stagnated. "Haha, I haven't consolidated yet, so forget it. Wait for me to consolidate for a while before coming," he thought to himself. "If I fight you directly, I'm afraid I still can't beat you, then the prestige that I just promoted will be instantly wiped out." Chen Yanxiang's judgment of Li Yu's strength is still very clear. Even though his transformation effect is good, the growth of his physical body and divinity is stronger than other strongest transformations. But in his estimation, he is still a long way from this monster Li Yi. "Okay, then Brother Chen, I'll find you next time." "Haha, no problem." Of course no problem. After dealing with Li Yi, Chen Yanxiang immediately walked towards Tu Kuogai. He wanted to show off in front of Tu Kuogai. He was still not confident enough in front of Li Yi. Li Yi had no choice. In this case, he could only figure out the Hankyu shedding technique. Since his precision was very high this time, the amount of information he obtained was much higher than the previous times. Therefore, his workload this time should be much higher. But it was precisely because of the many details that Li Yu was confident that he could use the Hankyu shedding technique to achieve his next goal of strengthening his physical body. By the way, it would be even better if he could master the Ice God body. This skill, which is said to be not necessarily mastered by demigods, he intends to master it all and make the most of his strength in mastering multiple divine sequences. Chapter 425 Ice God. In the blink of an eye, another half-month had passed. On this day, the people who participated in the forging training on Wudao Mountain had left one after another to participate in their own strategy plans. Li Yu had not left yet. He was concentrating on perfecting his Hankyu shedding method. This version involved more aspects. It not only summarized and optimized the previous 4 versions, but also included the subtle adjustments of 0.1 in nanometer precision this time. Once completed, his physical body will definitely have another amazing improvement. The battle plan that Li Yu participated in was the Nano-Ruin strategy led by Duan Mushang. The Nano-Ruins are very important. Not only are they located on the Changyang star of the Star Clan, but they also contain core strategic items related to the subsequent development of mankind, which cannot be lost. Originally, he had to set off a few days ago. But Duan Mushang learned that Li Yu's Hankyu shedding method was almost complete, so he made a special call and asked Li Yu to take the starship to join him after completing it. He could do the preliminary work for him. Therefore, Li Yu was relieved to focus on his own business. And on this day, he finally perfected the Hankyu shedding method. Not only that, after a month of continuous absorption of space-time memory fragments, his soul reserve also had a great growth, and quickly recovered to 140 pieces. Although it was slightly worse than before, it was not weak. Now that the conditions have been gathered, it is time to try the new version of the bodybuilding method on myself. Give it a try. Standing up from the training ground, Li Yu twisted his muscles and bones and began to adjust his breathing. Then, he activated the prison-suppressing divinity and activated the characteristics of the space-time freezing part. After testing, the cold dragon method and the freezing characteristics are more effective. Then, the subtle force was adjusted to 10 nanometers, and he began to forge himself. Bang! 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 The invisible force hammered at himself, hitting all parts of his body like raindrops. Soon, With a superposition of these powers, countless cells and countless gene chains in the depths of his body slowly overflowed with freezing power from the depths, extending upwards and spreading everywhere. This freezing power is very mysterious. It activates the freezing characteristics of the Pluto's divine gene and naturally generates it in the body. Soon, he was frozen into a huge ice ball by himself. 3 layers inside and 3 layers outside, tightly wrapped. The surrounding air, under this freezing power that can freeze even time and space, quickly condensed into white frost, and in the blink of an eye, it covered the entire training ground of dozens of acres. Not only that, the freezing power released from this ice ball is still spreading. In a blink of an eye, the area where the Wushan maze outside the training ground is located was frozen into ice flowers and became extremely hard. This freezing power seems to be superimposed and amplified with the concept power of Li Yi's genetic divinity, becoming extremely wide-ranging. Li Yi's transformation under freezing, although slow, is solid and powerful. Time passed in a blink of an eye, and it came to 3 days later. On this day, Tanyaozu flew over from a distance, mumbling. Strange, is Li Yi obsessed with cultivation? Why doesn't he respond to any message or communication? The Wushan labyrinth is very large, basically half the size of this Henshin prison. When Tanyaozu flew down from the surface of the moon, he didn't feel anything. When he approached the Wushan labyrinth, he shivered unconsciously. This shiver seemed to almost freeze his soul. Oh my god, Li Yi has made such a big progress again, and, this time the movement seems to be much bigger than before. Tanyaozu was secretly shocked. Wow, the defense layer outside the Wushan labyrinth was actually frozen, showing a layer of frost. Although this layer of frost is not obvious, it is at least a periphery. Li Yi is in the training ground opened up in the inner layer of the labyrinth, right? Tanyaozu didn't have time to be shocked. He activated the divine will to form a shield to resist the natural suppression of the Wushan labyrinth and flew quickly. The location of the training ground is easy to find. After a few turns, you can see the training ground. However, when entering the periphery of the training ground, Tanyaozu's body trembled directly. He found that the chill here was so severe that even the divine shield could not completely resist it. He immediately increased the activation ratio of divine will. After a while, he breathed a sigh of relief. It was really outrageous that a powerful person felt like he was falling into an ice cellar. Li Yi, reply if you are here. General Lin is here, and he wants to call a small meeting for those who have not left yet. Tanyaozu glanced around the training ground and saw Li Yi frozen into an ice block. He was not surprised, or judged that Li Yi was entangled by someone. Because his coordination perception told him that Li Yi's vitality was very fierce and vivid, as bright as a sky-high ice flame. Although he was frozen, he showed an unprecedented vitality. This surging vitality made Tanyaozu, who had been throwing vitality all year round, more and more frightened the more he sensed it. Kala, Kala. Suddenly, as if awakened by Tanyaozu, the thick frozen layer outside Li Yi's body began to break and evaporate. As the first piece of ice evaporated, suddenly, the huge ice shook violently, and then disappeared instantly, like a whale swallowing water, sucking all the freezing power back into Li Yi's body. It was Li Yi who used the divine power of the prison to simulate Chen Yanxiang's unique skill, the anti-cold characteristic. Li Yi's slender body slowly emerged in the mist of the fading ice. Tick, tick. The remaining water vapor condensed on Li Yi's earlobes, and dripped onto the ground as he raised his head. Under 200 times the gravity, even water drops are like heavy hammers. Tanyaozu looked at Li Yi's brand new state, opened his mouth to say something, but was speechless in the end. What should I say? You have improved again? You are so awesome? Tanyaozu felt choked up when comparing himself. Li Yi, huh? You kid deserves to die? Tanyaozu gritted his teeth. Haha, brother Tan is joking, I should be able to live longer than you. Li Yi smiled. He was not kidding. With the accumulation of immortality divine genes and the strengthening of his physical body, his lifespan had also made great progress. Brother Tan, you just said that Chief Lin is back. Yes, shall we go? Okay, my goal for this period has been completed for the time being. After meeting with Chief Lin, it's time to set off. But speaking of it, shouldn't you have set off a long time ago? Why are you still here today? Isn't it because I was waiting for you? Duanmu specifically called me and asked me to wait for you and set off with you. Well, then you've made a profit. You can do less work. Oh, no, I'd rather not watch you show off here. Tanyaozu said that he didn't want to watch Li Yi show off, But after thinking about it, he couldn't help asking, Li Yi, looking at your appearance just now, it seems that you have gained a lot more than before. Have you already comprehended the body of the ice god? Li Yi nodded. Yes, Brother Tan has a good eye, it's the body of the ice god. In addition to this, you should have other gains, right? Tan Yaozu didn't believe that Li Yi had only this one gain. Looking at Li Yi's condition just now, it was obvious that he had other progress. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone, see you in the next video.